Hey, and welcome to Mighty Fine Shindig, a Firefly podcast. From Common Room Radio, I'm Liz Stevens.
I'm Sarah Kate Pazant.
I'm Vinton Bain.
And I'm Alistair Stevens.
This podcast is going to get pretty interesting.
Define interesting.
Oh God, we're all going to die?
I mean, emotionally, yes.
I was going to say, it's the last ever Mighty Fine Shindig, you guys. This is our last MFS.
Well, the last so far. Every 18 months, there's a new rumor of a Firefly reboot. You guys
It's
might
true.
all be gathered
They've also
together.
got that fan movie. We could do that. There's comics.
Fan movie?
Yeah.
I did know there were comics.
Also,
I read
Fox
Shepherd's
put out
Tale.
some kind of statement. I haven't looked deeply into this, saying that they are willing to start Firefly back up again if Joss Whedon will come do it. And nothing has happened from that. But
that's
Fox put out
rude.
like a statement saying that.
Wow.
That's unkind.
Yeah.
It is a little bit.
I need to look that up
Yeah.
and see what's going on.
Hey, Joss,
It's
remember
been
that
10
show that we
years.
murdered? Remember that show we murdered to death? We'd kind of like you to come back. Fool me once, Fox.
Do you remember how we killed your child? If you'd like to have another one, we can take care of him again.
Remember how we gave you the chance to do another one and then we killed that one too?
You remember how we wouldn't even let you make the movie? You had to go somewhere else.
This is just an abusive relationship. Fox just reaches out every now and then and slaps Joss Whedon on the side of the head.
Right.
Just
They've like
remember
still
what
got
we
his
did.
number.
Yeah.
Like they figure out his number. They find it on like Facebook and they're just like, hey, baby.
You know how it is? You were out at happy
Yeah.
hour. Suddenly it seems like a good idea. You know you shouldn't be calling him. You know
Yeah.
you shouldn't be, Fox.
Yeah. Even if it's just to be like, hey, I still hate your guts.
It'll be different this time, baby. I swear.
Nah.
It'll be exactly the same.
Exactly
the same.
All of which is to say, congratulations for making it to the end of Firefly, you guys.
Yay.
Oh, to the untimely end of Firefly, indeed.
That's okay, though, because the movie restored my faith in this property as a whole.
Yay!
That's so great. I think we all had this experience, right? We all
Yeah.
went into Serenity
Yeah.
kind of expecting to enjoy it and then really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really, really liked it.
Yeah, I had almost no recollection of the movie at all. Going into it.
You could have told me that Inara was not in this film, and I would have agreed with you 100%. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, she's totally not in there. I don't remember her at all. Like, and
She has
to
the
be fair,
amazing Amazon goddess with the bow thing going on. How did you forget that? How did
I
your
don't
prepubescent
know.
body be like, oh no, I don't need that in my brain?
Yeah, well, I mean, once you see her in Deadpool, everything else just kind of like filters straight out.
That's fair.
No, I haven't seen this movie legitimately in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last time I watched it was 7 or 8 years ago. And
It has
I've
been
only
a
seen it like 3 or
fat
4
minute.
times.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember half of the things that happened in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm the same.
And I didn't remember liking it that much. I
Right,
remember
yeah,
liking it,
yeah.
thinking it was okay, but yeah, not this much. I liked it a lot.
I
after
liked
watching
it
this
so,
time.
so much.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys for helping me to like this movie because I've never been that interested in River, but watching Firefly
Yes.
this time with the company of MFS has made me appreciate her arc a lot more. And of course, the movie's pretty River-centric.
Yeah.
It
So I
is,
was
surprisingly
in.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same goes for Simon.
Yes.
well, now we finally
The
figured out
Tam
who
siblings.
Simon is. I
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did we? I mean, like we finally plucked like cool Simon. We figured out that like
Like, you know
Simon
what?
is just like super cool, right?
The
We
last
spun
episode
the
of the
big
series,
wheel of Simon, and it came up cool.
Came up
Best
cool
list
Simon.
but cool.
they saw the
Vestless
last
but
episode of the
cool.
series and we're like, oh, that's what Simon should have been all along. Let's make him that for the movie.
Yeah.
So true. Now, how did we feel like the movie overall stood next to the show? I felt like it felt very different from the Firefly show. Although I enjoyed it very much, I liked it all the way through. It had a real different vibe.
Visually, they have to because
That's true.
taking it to a cinematic, you have to do completely different visual things than you
Yep.
do on TV. Have to have higher definition cameras and all these things. And then, of course, they tried new techniques visually with the cameras on the movie than they did with the show. And I think they were just able to dial everything up a little bit. So it did
Sure.
obviously get some different feelings, and you lose some of the high contrasts, high saturations that you get in the show, just because they're having to take it to a different medium there.
That makes sense, sure.
But it does have that sense that this is what the show would have looked like if they
Oh.
had shot it as a movie.
If
That,
they
that
had
it
that kind of
feels
budget.
like it has a similar kind of tone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Broadly. There are a
Right.
couple of, real retcons. Vincent,
Yeah.
you were talking before we started recording about Mal.
Mal is a hero, obviously, in the show, and we know that toward the end. We were like, oh yeah, he's our hero, he's our cowboy. But in the movie, Joss Whedon didn't want to take him from a hero to a hero because that's not an arc.
Yeah, that's not
So
interesting.
he wanted to start him a little bit in a darker place than he was in the show, and a little bit more on the war burden side of I have to do what it takes to survive and keep my crew alive, and kind of what we saw at the beginning of the show. But he's already kind of got an arc in the show, so they kind of erased some of that arc and brought him in and said, hey, look, he's kind of a bad guy. He makes decisions that are a little harsh sometimes, and we get to see that really easily at the very beginning. He kills a few people unarmed and has no problem with it. But then he arcs toward the end and he makes some decisions. He finds something to believe in and he becomes our hero.
Right.
The only other retcon that really, really bothers me, like most other things fit in, I think, pretty well and you can kind of wash over, is Simon knows everything about River, and that does not fit with the TV show.
Oh,
like
right.
Right from the beginning, he comes in and they just explain
Right.
everything to him. And he's like, oh, okay.
It is pretty nice, though, especially for folks who are like watching the show and we're getting really frustrated with the whole River thing and just like with her being so like weird and ethereal and kind of like a total space cadet, if you will. And so it worked. This movie worked for me so much better than
really?
critically analyzing the entire show personally. But my primary value is slim women kicking ass. So like this movie was specifically made to delight me. So there we go.
Joss Whedon's Serenity, a movie for Sarah Kate.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is strange that Simon comes into the story as we now understand it, knowing literally everything about River. Not just that she's psychic, but why she's psychic. Because we even talk about the stripped neurons or whatever it is that the doctor says right at the beginning. I like to retcon some kind of not seriously traumatic, but significant head injury for Simon.
Right.
Between that flashback and then the events of the show.
Probably from River. She did like one of those crazy dancer spin kicks.
Right.
Sure.
Just knocked the knowledge right out of his head.
Right. Just to protect him. I didn't want you to know I was broken. Oh, I made myself sad.
Oh, jeez. Should we get into the thing then?
Yes. So Serenity is written and directed by Joss Whedon. This is Joss Whedon's feature film directorial debut, actually.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
It takes place approximately 6 months after the last episode. Events between the final episode of Firefly and the beginning of Serenity, including Inara and Shepard Book leaving the ship, are chronicled in a 3-part comic book series by Joss Whedon called Those Left Behind.
I've only seen the Shepherd's Tale one. I didn't realize there were more.
We read that one together. That was fun.
I do remember that.
We did it all dramatized.
Oh, that's fun.
In the DVD commentary, Joss Whedon said that if the show had not been canceled, the plot of the movie would have been season 2. This is where he was wanting to lead them to toward the end of season 2, finding the planet of Miranda. And these were things that he had working in his head. Of course, he had to rework them a little bit for the film. So shortly after cancellation of the show, Joss contacted Universal Studios and flat out asked them for a way to continue the series as a film. And they signed on to the project, even though Whedon had yet to create a full story. And Whedon said they came in when nobody else would, and they gave them everything they needed, and they were behind them 100%. And it was just like something you don't see in Hollywood.
Sure.
happen. And on March 2nd, 2004, the movie was officially greenlit with a $40 million budget. Guess how much money this movie made?
$50 million.
The same amount that it spent.
Oh, the broke even.
I think it was actually the exact amounts were closer to 39 point something for both. And so it broke pretty much even. I'm assuming they've made a little bit money off of it since then, with people getting into it, but probably not a ton because the show wasn't that popular. It's more of a cult thing even now.
Sure.
Yeah, we should talk about how fast that turnaround is because movies don't generally happen like that, particularly when you're dealing with a property that belongs to someone else.
Right.
Firefly wrapped in the middle of 2003. The movie was greenlit in March 2004. It came out September 2005.
Oh, that is quick.
Fast.
Yeah.
That is really fast. Yeah, wow.
Especially for something that had so many special effects and so much, because that part takes forever, doesn't it?
And such a large cast, too.
And they had to redo. You would think that they would have a lot of that stuff ready from the show, but no.
They had to
rebuild all the sets.
It can be
and then they had to redo all the CGI because the CGI was made for television, not for a cinematic feature.
Which is so different.
And it was.
2002, 2003 television, so it was all standard definition. It was
So they had to completely re-render all the CG.
I did notice that the ship felt different. It felt more spacious and more open, and there was more light. Of course, you talked about the light being there because of the HD, but in general, it did feel like a new set. So that doesn't surprise me, I suppose.
I think in part, too, that's the way that it's shot. We're relying on handheld movie cameras. We're doing a lot of interesting stuff with these spaces that we didn't have the opportunity to do in the series. It looks fantastic.
It does look fantastic.
I don't think Serenity's ever looked better.
Well, and I missed some of the lighting because we had that kind of warm glow with the light in the show. There was lots of amber lights and yellow lights, and we had a lot of blue on ship, which was weird. It took me a moment to feel at home on Serenity because of that. I think the lighting made a big difference.
The only place that felt much smaller to me was the engine room. It seemed as though Kaylee's compartment was tiny. It feels narrower.
It felt like they jammed a bunch of stuff in there. I noticed that as well.
Yeah. And they don't explore it as much as they did in the show. In the show, sometimes you'd walk around things. They just kind of showed it from an angle every time they showed it.
Almost like they were peeking in the door, right? Yeah, I do remember that now.
And it is true that the cameras you use can change everything. I think there's an episode of Scrubs that did this where they showed like how they filmed the normal show, and then they switched for a joke to a soap opera looking camera.
Yes.
And it changes everything. They didn't change anything with the set, anything with the way people were dressed. They just changed the camera to the type of camera they use.
I
in
do
soap
not
operas,
like
and
soap opera
totally
cams.
changed everything.
I don't like the way they look.
No, it looks kind of weird.
It looks super
I
weird.
don't fully understand it. I'm more of a photographer than a cinematographer, so I don't fully get what happens there or what
I don't know,
lenses
weird
are,
magic,
but
genre magic.
Completely different.
Genre
Changes
magic.
everything. So when they finished this film, they put it out, and then I say finish, but when they got close to finishing this film, they put it out in a few theaters to test play it before all the CG was done, before all the writing even was fully done, so they could add more things to it or change it depending on the way that audiences reacted, and that way they could advertise the movie to a larger group. Since not that many people had seen the show at that point, they wanted to push it out there, so that was a thing that the studio greenlit them to do. And Joss Whedon recorded an intro before it saying that it was ignored and abandoned and the story should end there, but it doesn't, because the people who made the show and the people who saw the show, which is roughly the same amount of people, fell in love with it a little too much to let it go. Too much to lay down arms when the battle looked pretty much lost. In Hollywood, people like that are called unrealistic, quixotic, obsessive. In my world, they're called browncoats.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I like it.
Is it too late to change odd wonks?
The browncoats. In that same address, he said, so basically all you fans worked hard and you cried out, and this brought this back, and this made this possible, and this made us all push forward with this. So he really gave the credit there to the fans and said, so if it sucks, it's your fault. And on that note, it's ranked number 5 in Rotten Tomatoes' 50 best TV adaptations of all time. So it's pretty well received. People do like this movie.
Yeah.
And one quick funny note on that. When he did finish the script and everything, Joss Whedon showed it to Nathan Fillion, and Nathan asked him to read just the first line and the last line. That's all he wanted at the moment. And Joss said, well, the first line is, Earth that was. And the last line is, wow, sure was weird how that Mal guy died in the first act.
Time for some thrilling heroics.
So we start on the Universal logo, which turns into the actual Earth as we get a voiceover teaching a history lesson and catching us up on the backstory of Firefly the show, what we learned in the show of where everyone got to be in space and left Earth and how the resources ran dry, and then the Alliance coming to be. And then the teacher giving this lesson is asked by a child in the classroom why the Independents would even fight the Alliance, and that leads the class to break out into talking about Reavers. A young River, establishing this as a flashback for us here, speaks up saying that the Independents fought because people don't like being meddled with, being told what to do and what to think. The teacher tells River, we don't tell people what to think, we're just trying to show them how, and abruptly stabs River in the head. As we flash to her being experimented on, and the doctor stabbing her in the head with something, and they say that she is dreaming. That doctor talks to a man about how River is their star pupil, that she will be ideal for defense deployment, even with the side effects of her being unstable. The man is quickly revealed to be our Simon.
Looking like a supervillain, I have to say.
He
looks
stoic there.
awesome in this whole getup, the garb that he's wearing.
I have to ask, how did you guys feel about the way this slowly fades from the telling us about the history to the classroom and then jumps from that being a dream sequence? Does that make you, does that startle you? Because every time I see it, I forget that's going to happen when the teacher just stabs her in the head. And I'm like, oh, what's going on?
It worked beautifully for me. I loved the opening. I was definitely carried along through all of it. And I really liked the casting of Child River because she was absolutely River.
Yep. It also helped that is actually Summer Glau's voice. They did the voice over.
Oh, they dubbed?
No
Yeah, I
wonder
can't
then.
remember
That makes
who-
so much sense.
I wanna
because
say-
it was uncanny.
I want to say it was Nathan Fillion said in the commentary that somehow he knew the girl that was doing that. She was real upset when she learned that they did their voiceover. And Joss Whedon's like, well, that's what I'm here to do. Break little kids' hearts and make them cry.
That was a great choice, though, because it did make it obvious automatically without any kind of guesswork.
Yeah, and it synced up. I didn't know this until I heard the commentary. I was like, oh.
Oh,
I think
wow.
it's beautifully done. I actually love our real introduction. I love the Earth that was. We've had a couple of different versions of that through the show to date. I kind of wish that we had this version before every single episode because it is far and away the clearest and most punchy version of that narrative, I think. Moving from that into the teaching environment, this gorgeous kind of ancient Greece of
Right, I love the
columns
outdoor
and light
teaching spaces
and
they've got.
So beautiful. Then that hard, jarring transition into what I guess is River's reality at that time. Stunning. I just love this entire intro sequence. And as a means of drawing people into this story, I think it's perfect. This is exposition. Yeah. People say exposition like it's a dirty word, and it's not, because we all need to.
You need it a little,
give
at
the
least
viewer,
a little bit. Sure.
a means of accessing your story. This is beautifully done.
Yeah. So the Doctor explains to Simon how River is a psychic and could be a living weapon. And Simon mentions, after he talks about her being graceful or something like that, I can't remember the word that he uses there.
A
and
creature
Simon
of
says, well,
extraordinary grace.
she always loved to dance. And the Doctor looks at him funny and he throws that weapon down, which I've realized, because I've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's the exact same weapon that Ward uses in one of the early episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He has like a rod that hits a thing, and then this blue thing shoots out and
the
knocks everybody
084
out. It's the same thing.
Yes,
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So a bit of a Whedon connection there, I see.
Yeah.
So clearly, these all exist in the same universe.
Seriously.
Yes,
Of course,
that means
yeah.
technically Firefly is a part of the MCU, you guys. That's what we just
Everything
did.
in my life just got better.
Yeah.
Yep, that made me very happy.
We abandoned Earth that was after
After the superheroes destroyed it.
Wanda probably did something. Am I
She
right?
probably did.
I love the way that Simon tries to wake up River, kind of gives up on it a little bit, looks out the door, and then turns around and she's standing there. That's so perfect.
Yeah.
And they try to make their escape through the building. At one point, some people are coming, and River climbs up onto the ceiling and is
Such
suspended.
a cool shot.
Yeah, it's so great. A little funny note about that is that the set was not built right. And so it was 6 inches too wide for her to be able to do that.
Oh, no.
And that's why there's a little ledge, if you see it, that they put in last minute and painted. And apparently Joss Whedon said that when they put it up there, it was done so quickly that the paint was still wet when she got up there, so her foot was all painted.
Oh, that's funny.
That was such a cool shot. I loved it. And right there in the beginning, we didn't get that kind of River in the show for several episodes in.
Oh, yeah.
So there within the first couple of minutes of meeting her, to see that kind of power from her was amazing.
So River and Simon climb into a shaft as officials try to get to them. A laser grid makes its way up the shaft as they ascend to a ship. Then we switch to a man, the Operative, having watched this all on surveillance recording. Which I think is a
That
wonderful
is some
way.
wicked surveillance equipment,
Yeah.
by the way. I mean, like, they got every
That's some
single
futuristic-
detail.
A little over the top, pretty cool.
I mean, I get what we're doing. I'm just being nitpicky. Also, the Operative, probably one of my, like, number one all-time villains. Like, this guy is the real deal, and I
Yes.
adore him.
I really liked the Operative too, and he reminded me a little bit of Jubal Early in certain ways, but like
But only
they
in the
got
best
it
ways.
right.
Yes.
Because Jubal Early was just so freaking weird, you guys. But this guy made sense to me. His motivations made
He
sense.
didn't threaten to rape anybody.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
falling on the sword was much cooler. I
Yeah,
liked that.
way cooler than, yeah.
Yes. So this would be a good time to introduce our first guest actor here. This is Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Good
Whoa.
job.
Wow. Well
He's got a
done.
great name. I love it. Playing the Operative, who some of you might recognize from his recent role as Mordo in Doctor Strange.
He did a great job in that movie, too.
yeah.
He sure did.
He's known for his roles in Armistead, American Gangster, Children of Men, 12 Years a Slave, and The Martian, and has received numerous nominations and awards for acting, and was elevated to Commander of the Order of the British Empire.
What does that mean? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
no
that's what
time.
it's
It's
like
moving
saying
on.
neither.
It's
It's like
super
saying
cool.
neither.
Does he
Yeah.
get to
It
carry a
means he gets
sword?
to put CBE after his name.
Yep.
That's really neat.
He's on the path to a knighthood now.
Wow.
What?
So at this point, we are in the present for the show, at least as far as we know. And I think this was a great way, like Alistair mentioned, to introduce us to all of this story, all of this background that you have to do in a movie,
I think
from a
it's
TV show,
beautifully
introduce
done.
everyone, get everyone on board quickly. And the way that fades in and fades out keeps you interested. It's not just throwing information at you.
Sure.
It's beautiful.
It's a masterclass in that kind of transition, because we open on the Earth that was, we move from that into the classroom, we move from that into the lab, into the test chamber, and then we move from that into this surveillance environment. And every one of those transitions adds a layer into this universe. We're
It sure
building
does,
out
yeah.
and up. It's so dexterous. It's so beautifully done. kind of sickened that this was Whedon's directorial debut, honestly. Joss Whedon likes to show off, you guys. I don't know if you've noticed that.
So true. I do have a note. I said, what is happening with the score? The score of this movie threw me off just a little bit, just because it was so different from the show, and I'm just in love with the score from the show. I think it's so beautifully done. Yeah. So I did have a little bit of adjustment to that, and because it made it more of an action movie, I guess, which it was. Yeah. It was more of an action movie.
It's a lot more adventure-y.
Yeah, like a space
less
adventure.
Western and Asian mix, and it's a lot more almost like pirate themes. All of it. It's like
that's
really like sea adventure sounds in there for me. Every time I hear, I'm like, Black Sails. Am I watching Black Sails?
There was that. I did ask. I was like, is this Dulcimer or?
Yeah. So we find out that this man is an operative of the Parliament. That he has no rank or name.
That's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Just as a concept,
like, I don't
it's
exist.
amazing.
Yeah, he's like
Much
a 007 or something.
I don't exist.
Not even a 007 because they get the 007. He's nothing.
He's just
which flashing way forward to the end of this movie, I really love the way he even exits the film with him being a shadow. And Joss Whedon mentions in the commentary, he made him darker and made him just kind of disappear off the scene. Like he escapes like a shadow. He's nothing. He doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He still doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Creepy.
The doctor from the flashback, from the security footage, enters and finds out this information and says that it's madness that Simon would give up so much for River. And the operative says, it's love. Look at his face.
Yeah.
This guy is so very smart. He's so good at his job, so intelligent, so creepy, so great. I love the operative. Maybe my favorite part of the movie. Second favorite part.
The operative explains that this doctor put key members of Parliament in a room with River, a psychic, to show her off, that she could have possibly gleaned secret information from them. And at this point, the doctor tries to back himself up like, well, I don't think she knows anything, but there's nothing she could possibly know. And the operative's like, it's my business to keep secrets, not to know them. And in a different time, in civilized cultures, a man who has made the mistakes that you have would fall on his sword and die an honorable death. And the doctor says, unfortunately, I forgot to bring, and that's when the operative
whips out a sword. Yeah.
Just straight up a katana, right? That was amazing.
How does this work for you? We've talked before about these nested layers of anachronism within the Firefly universe, that this is almost a purposeful recreation of Earth that was, that there are tangled elements from different periods and different cultures. But the operative seems to be giving a different perspective on that, because this is maybe the first time we've seen someone look at the Alliance and say, no, this is a fallen culture, that this is, things now are less true and good and noble than they used to be. Is that something that you guys connect with? Is that something you find effective? I guess that connects too with his use of the sword and his somewhat archaic speech pattern. But
Right. It's surprising, I think, now, because we have so much of the Asian culture that's in this Firefly universe, that we're just now touching on this kind of samurai
Code.
Yeah, the code of the samurai, I suppose, because that seems like something that would have appealed very much to Mal. It's and of course, a lot of our Westerns, too, come from, well, Seven Samurai. So that's something that I think that they could have touched on even more in the show.
Yeah. I think it almost just felt natural to me, having watched the show and seen that mixture of the Western and the ancient Chinese.
Yeah.
And just being thrown together there, that it was like, oh, this is a cool Asian influence again here, where this person has another take on this idea and is more focused on the way that they did things over in this culture rather than the Western side of it. So it felt pretty natural to me. I didn't pull me out of it. Have I not watched the show, I probably would have been like, oh, this is really interesting, and look deeper into it, but it just felt natural, so I went right over it.
Yeah, no, I think it fits beautifully.
It
It's
does.
completely consistent characterization. It works really gorgeously for me. It's interesting in that he sits between these two worlds. He's looking backward at a world that was apparently greater and grander and more noble, but he's also trying to create a new world, a better
Create
world.
a better
as we'll
world, he says.
Discuss
Yeah.
later. So it's interesting to have this perspective on the Alliance that is, it's not so great. you
Yeah.
guys, from within the Alliance. I mean, we get that from the border worlds. We get that from the fringe
Obviously,
worlds.
right.
But to see that being voiced by the operative of the Parliament, gave me shivers. It's pretty
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So at that moment, the two guards by the doctor rush in to protect him, and the operative kills both of them.
Yeah, he does.
He paralyzes the doctor.
I really do. This is like one of the most competent villains I have ever
Right?
seen,
No
and I'm
kidding.
just so freaking
So
proud.
good. Yeah. Man,
I'm so happy. He's so
100%.
good.
And that's the thing. They decided that they wanted a villain that is likable and understandable, that you don't look at him and go, oh, this guy is totally, I'm against everything that he stands for.
Right,
And go,
right.
oh, I kind of understand.
Sure. Yeah.
And I get him. And I kind of like him.
Yeah.
So he kills the 2 guards. He paralyzes the doctor with his cool kung fu nerve-hitting paralyzation.
Right?
And
Also cool.
kneels and holds his sword up, telling the woman that was with the doctor to bring him information that he will need as the doctor falls onto the sword. And he reassures him, this is an honorable death. It's a good death.
It's so good.
It's so
Everything
good.
is so good.
And the doctor, even like his facial expressions as he's falling on there, so well done.
Yeah.
As he's calling out to the girl, young miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, perfectly calm.
So good.
Yeah, if you could just go ahead and bring me that information, that would be great. Slorp! Slorp!
That's the sound. That's it.
And he just keeps talking,
Nail
and then
on
he
the
just
head.
like very casually looks over and is like, no, this is a good death. Don't worry. I mean, like you have nothing to be ashamed of. And it's just like, you're the coolest guy in this entire film.
Oh, it was good. And that we're making a better world.
We're making a better world.
It is creepy. Gives me chills.
Nothing more horrifying than a man who thinks he's in the right.
Yep. We've talked
And
about that a
boy,
lot
does
on this
the
show.
operative believe he
Yes,
is in the
he
right.
And
does.
it is belief. Yeah, we'll talk about that some more as we go on. Absolutely.
So that was our cold open. If this had been the
I
show,
know, that's what I said.
that's where the theme music comes
That
on.
is a hell of a cold open.
It was my favorite so far.
yeah.
That was
Best one so
masterfully
far.
done. Yeah, just gorgeous.
But since this isn't the show, instead of our theme music, we get the Serenity logo falling into place, and then it slowly becomes a painted logo on the side of our ship.
Of the ship, which I loved. That was a nice touch.
And here we realize the ship is experiencing some turbulence. We zoom into the bridge, and Mal and Wash are trying to figure out what's going on and how to fix it. We get that line from Mal when something falls off the ship. What was that? Which is going to come back up at the end of the movie. Which I always look over that line until the very end of the movie. And I go, oh yeah, he said that at the beginning. It was his first line.
It's a
and
really
his last
beautiful,
line.
beautiful two beat.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
And easy to miss one
that.
too because they're so far divided.
Yeah, I missed it.
So this opening scene is made to look like one long take. It's actually 2, but only because there's a digital cut in the middle because they have to switch sets because the top and bottom are different sets.
So
It's beautiful.
well done.
Yes.
The only other thing I've seen that even compares to this is there is a movie called Silent House that is one of Elizabeth Olsen's first movies, and the entire film is shot as though it is all a single take, but they did that same. I mean, like it's nuts. It's like an hour and a half long, and it all looks like it's one take. But of course, they're doing things where like they'll cut across like the mantle or whatever. And it's like they paused
Digital
right there,
cuts,
and did digital cuts and go ahead. And I mean, like it's fantastic. They stole it from like some Swedish film or something. I don't know.
If you've never seen the movie Birdman with Michael Keaton, it does that into the mind-blowing effect.
Oh,
Where
really?
They do like all sorts of stuff where they go on top of a building, they go back down to the street. They do.
Oh,
they
sure.
They go past a guy playing drums that matches up with the soundtrack. It's
Wow.
insane. They do like so many crazy tricks in that movie. The best nonstop shot like that, and no time, but
I know. I do too.
is True Detective. There's one scene in True Detective. You can just look it up on YouTube. It's like a 10-minute scene of them rushing in and out of houses. Gunshots being fired, scenes like the actual dialogue happening, cars crashing, helicopters flying by, police cars
What
showing
the
up through this
hell?
neighborhood, and it's one long shot, and they got it perfect. And I'm like,
amazing.
I can't even believe it. It's so. If you never watch the show, just look up that scene on YouTube.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Also,
Cinematography
the
is
theme
cool, you
song.
guys.
This is great.
So cool. Joss Whedon said that this long shot was to establish a sense of safety in space.
Oh.
Well, it
I
works.
like that.
Yeah.
It did work.
And he praised the Steadicam operator who, in 40-something takes, only slipped once going backwards up some stairs.
Wow.
I love this opening sequence. I love getting reintroduced to all of our main cast. I think it works so beautifully.
Yeah. Yes.
We are given the very best, the most themselves of each of our characters and each of our main cast, like instantaneously.
Yes.
And it is, I mean, there are so many lines in this opening sequence that I would have bet you money were in the show. And they're from the movie, like everything's shiny, Captain, not to fret. Like that, I mean, like that is the like epitome of Kaylee. That is Kaylee through and through. And God, it's so damn
Dialogue
good.
fits so well.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, I noticed a lot of times in the movie things that we've used as gifts, that I've used as gifts several times throughout the
So many
MFS
iconic
run.
lines.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
It turned out we all loved the movie more than we thought we did.
There we go.
We just thought the
Also-
movie was the show.
Yeah, turns out.
And we got great Wash and Zoe too.
Yes.
So
We got-
thank
yeah.
God.
Which was
Great
added in
everyone.
later because Joss Whedon realized he didn't put enough of that in, so he went back and did some reshoots because he realized that the test audiences, I guess, weren't realizing that they were married at all.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So some good
Exception-
reshoots.
with the exception of Mal, who, as we've discussed, has been kind of forcibly rewritten because
Right.
we need him to arc.
Even
And
that I
think that's
felt
clean.
worked for me though.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
absolutely.
it still felt true to Mal.
Sure.
Just a bit of a retcon.
It is
sure.
interesting, yeah, because we draw so much from objects in space. We've got this
Oh, yes.
luminous and ethereal version of River. We've got the Operative, who's not unlike Jubal Early, though.
Right.
I completely agree, like a
Infinitely
vastly better version
Yeah.
of Jubal Early. But the Mal that we get is the Mal from the beginning of the show.
Right.
The friction and the tension between him and Simon, for example. That's
Yes,
that's
that's
an
like
episode,
episode
one kind
one,
of friction.
yeah.
But I think it works fantastically well.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, and you're right, moving down, it's in particular that shot as we move down from Jane into Zoe and all the way down through the ship. It's so good. It's so perfect. It's
Yeah.
just,
It's dumb how good
it
is.
is dumb how good it is. It was perfect.
Episode title right there.
Yes.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
And I actually buy the Mal retcon a lot because of things that have happened. And I forgot, I meant to mention this, but I was thinking about this. And in the show, Nathan Fillion says that each person on the ship represents a part of Nathan Fillion that he refuses to let himself...
Right.
represents a part of Mal that he refuses to let himself have or that he has lost somewhere along the line. Book has left the ship.
Yes.
Whoops.
And taken
And
with
that
him.
took that part of Mal with him. And so I think he's a
The
little
faith
angry.
and the belief part.
Yeah.
And Lenore left the ship, and
guys.
while that might not have been a part of any characteristic necessarily, it did cause tension and strife, and it backed Mal up against a wall emotionally, where he's going to lash out a lot more and be a lot angrier.
Right. Mhm.
And so I can kind of see some of these changes that we've missed in the
That makes
in-between there,
perfect sense. You're a
driving him to
genius.
this point where he's upset and he's angry and he's on the edge and he's not reacting like the good dad of the family that we have
That's
come to know him as.
Exactly it. And I think one of the reasons that he's no longer the good dad of the family is that, Mom is gone.
He's a dad in the
thinking
midst
that.
of a divorce.
Oh no!
I went through this. It is kind of like that.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So Mal makes an announcement that they might explode, then walks past Jane, who is carrying more weapons than he could possibly make use of. And Jane says he doesn't want to explode, which I think is a little bit of irony that he's holding all those weapons.
Is this the part with the grenades also?
Yes.
Yeah, it always reminds me
Grenade joke is
of Boondock Saints. What are you going to need a rope for? Boy, sure would be nice if we had some grenades about now, wouldn't it?
Mal tells Jane, I don't plan on any shooting on this job. And Jane says, well, what you plan and what takes place ain't ever exactly been similar, which is true.
So true.
That's so
Yeah,
true.
smartest thing Jane has ever said on this show.
As Sarah said, Mal tells him to lose the grenades, and Zoe walks by and asks if they're crashing again. Mal goes to the engine room, impatiently questioning Kaylee as to what's going on with the ship, saying, you told me the entry couplings would hold for another week. And Kaylee says, that was 6 months ago, Captain.
Classic Kaylee and Mal. Yep, that's perfect.
Which I don't really like with the way Mal responds, saying, this is my ship, and if it crashes, it's your fault. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
back
okay.
to, I think
get
that
it,
it's
but
just back
yeah.
to crotchety Mal.
Yeah,
And I think
he's
that
just
he's kind of
crotchety old
teasing.
man.
I think that
Yeah.
that's just sort of supposed to be like them being
Yeah,
playful at each
for
other.
sure.
So I'm pretty okay with that.
And we
then
get the
he-
eye roll from her, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I do like her response. Her response what makes it better for me.
Yeah.
Then Mal turns and sees Simon face to face with him. And he's like, nothing to worry about. And Simon says, oh, I'm not worried. And we find out that Simon is very angry because Mal plans to take River on their next
Right.
job. And Simon is not having it.
This is a great little sequence for me because I like this argument that they're having. It shows us the part of Simon that I was afraid we might have missed when they had this like new I'm super cool badass Simon,
Right,
which is that idea of how strongly he holds to his oath as a doctor and that you are safe with him. They're having this argument. He's going, I mean, just in fisticuffs with Mal about whether or not he can take River out on this mission. And this is a great time. I mean, Mal is sitting down to take the shot, remember, from Simon. Could be
Yeah, the
anything.
inoculation.
Yeah, and they don't even address it. Like they're both just going. You can
Super
see
professional about it.
how
Super proud,
professional
yeah.
and how
And we're
much
still
trust.
doing the single shot at this
single
point.
shot.
It's-
I know, it's
yeah.
amazing.
There's
oh,
so
it's
much
amazing.
happening. Yeah.
But I love to see the trust that's established there. Like that's when we
though they're
understand how
arguing, yeah.
much that as much as they are arguing and butting heads about this, that there's complete trust between them.
And I do like that little tidbit that they're having to get inoculated to go down to this new planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me. And Mal, during this inoculation, explains that River's a reader and it would help the job to have someone there who could sense trouble before it's coming.
Right.
Mal says, I look out for me and mine. That don't include you unless I say it does, which, oh man, I don't like that. I was like, no, Mal, you're Dad. Stop. Stop,
Right.
Dad.
This is again like first episode Mal.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's tough
Exactly.
looking back on objects in space in that moment with River on the hull of the ship.
Right.
course.
And then moving from that
Yeah.
to this. That
Yeah.
feels a little
Yeah, the
a little
only thing
different.
that I can hold in there is that he has said it does before and he's just upset in this moment. And so he's
Sure.
saying
Yeah.
that.
Well, and this is one of those moments where we do realize just how much this is an adaptation of the show
Yeah.
and not so much.
Right,
Yeah, it's not
yeah.
like episode 14.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I do like that he says you put a thorn in the paw of the Alliance, and that tickled me. But it means I have to move faster, and it means I have to keep my eyes out and sometimes skip jobs that would be good jobs just to protect
Right.
you and your
Yeah.
sister.
Yeah.
Simon approaches River laying on the catwalk in the cargo hold, who says that she knows they are going for a ride. Serenity makes a pretty soft landing planetside for all the worrying that was done. They land actually pretty softly. Mal prepares his pistol. River ballet walks her way down some crates, which this was actually shot in
Gorgeous.
afterwards
Gorgeous.
here. Mal asks River if she understands her part in all of this, and she replies, "Do you?" And this was like the last thing put into the film. They had already changed the set. They were filming another movie. I can't remember what movie it was, but it was really ridiculous when I thought about it. But they brought the crates back in and they filmed this because they realized in the test shootings that people were so focused on River, they weren't paying attention to what Mal was doing. And this was a scene where they were able to switch the perspectives as she walked past him and
Oh,
she
that's so
basically
smart.
stares at him and tells the audience, you should look at him too.
Oh, that's so cool.
I like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a great transition scene. That
I'm
worked
just
perfectly.
handing
Yeah.
the POV back over to you now. My job here is done. Wow.
Also, I can take it back anytime. I like.
Anytime. And I will. Several times.
Excellent.
The crew boards their new hovering transportation.
I
Hey,
like
the mule looks different, don't it?
Well, that was one of the things in the movie or in the show rather that kind of threw me out because it was just such.
It's a little yellow
it's
ATV.
Such an
Yeah,
ATV. You're just like, this just is what it is. I mean, they didn't even try to dress it up or
Right,
anything. They just spray painted the sucker and called it good.
Yeah.
So I do love this new mule.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Apparently
Mule
this is something-
2.0.
Yeah, apparently this
Quite.
was something that Joss Whedon really wanted, and he said somewhere that if he didn't get a hovercraft for the mule, he would take his ball and go home. He said, this is a movie, and it needs a hovercraft.
I like that.
I like that Simon says it's okay to leave them to die
Drink,
to River.
drink,
First drink of the podcast. And Mal says, Doctor, I'm taking your sister under my protection. If anything happens to her, anything at all, I swear to you, I will get very choked up. Honestly, there could be tears.
I love Zoe's face in that scene too. Gosh, just it's so much fun like watching this and like just seeing everyone's reactions because you know that like the cast has like been apart for such a
Yeah.
long time because the show was
Yeah,
canceled
of
and they get to
course.
come back together and like
Yeah.
do this thing and like be with their friends, be with their family again.
Right.
Like
Which is why they have so much more chemistry than a normal movie because
Yeah.
they had all that built up.
oh,
for so long.
absolutely, yeah. It's like a family reunion and it's super cool.
Yeah. Kaylee tells Simon, don't worry, they'll be back before you can spit. Not that you spit.
Oh my gosh, we're finally back to like I adore that we are back to like cute, slightly awkward Kaylee
Yeah.
and Simon. I'm glad
Yes.
that they're not fighting anymore. I'm glad that it's just God, this movie works so much better for me
Yeah,
than
and I
the
love-
show as a whole.
It's really working really well. I think you're
Yeah.
right. It's much
Yeah.
more cohesive and now that he's figured out what exactly he wanted to do, we don't have so much of that jumping around with the characterizations,
Sure.
especially. We landed somewhere with everybody.
well, and we don't have like 8 different writers that we're cycling through
Right.
to tell these
Exactly.
stories. We're
We
telling
have to
one story,
relearn all the
one
characters
yes, exactly.
each time.
Yep.
Right, and a shuffled episode order that means
Yes.
you
Right,
can't
that
build
is completely
characterization
bonkers and
anymore.
means nothing. Yeah. No, yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Mal explains to Jane that they are here to rob this bank for an Alliance payroll that is paid in cash since credits can't be used out here. That's when Jane utters the famous line, "Shiny, let's be bad guys."
Be bad guys.
Which again,
So
I would have
good.
thought was from the show.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so
I always
perfect.
forget
Little
it's not.
unzip. Oh,
I
so good.
love this scene of them in the bank. I think it is so well done. I think
Yeah.
that it's shot wonderfully. I love, first of all, like, can we just talk about how ridiculously, stupidly graceful Summer Glau is?
Yeah.
Yes.
She is, like, ethereal is the best word, right?
Yeah.
Like, the word ethereal was made for Summer Glau as River Tam, right?
I love how much they use her physicality as a dancer for her characterization. It's gorgeous. And it works
so
for
good.
me beautifully. If anything, I want more of it.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful and just very interesting juxtaposition to whenever we see her completely kicking ass.
Yes. And it's still like choreography, like beautiful modern dance.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, there isn't a fight scene that looks like the River fight scenes in, I think, all of Whedon's work. I think the closest we get is Melinda May in S.H.I.E.L.D. By the time we move all the way through the MCU to get to that.
Wow.
Nobody else fights like Summer Glau. It's amazing.
No, it's so good. She's so good. Yeah.
And it makes me love that casting because, again, they mentioned sometime here in the movie where she's just 17. I'm like, yeah, okay. But she's so good and beautiful. And the way that she moves is, I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joss Whedon said that almost everybody did about 95% of their own stunts.
Oh, that's so great.
And
wow.
Summer Glau, especially because of her dance career,
She would have to.
Apparently, she picked up all the fighting training so much quicker than anybody else.
Oh, well,
She had,
of course she would. She already
learned so much of it. So they were just like, yeah, we want to just follow her fighting a lot. So later when we get to the big fight scene, she did almost all of her stunts throughout the whole thing, and they just followed her around and came up with new ideas for her to spin off things. And
Oh,
with
it's
her dance
so,
moves.
it's so good.
Gorgeous.
So the crew makes it into this bank and subdues the people inside. River slowly walks through, focused, looking around, and without looking, points out a man to Zoe. The man was about to pull a gun. Zoe catches him before he does, and Mal says, "Big happy family."
That is it's interesting that River does that because we had that, I mean, that happened in Objects in Space, right? Whenever we had Early, like, pull the gun directly behind him, pointing that at Simon.
And we get that exact beat later with Mal.
Yes, and it's just really,
it
was like, it was this weird, almost 3-beat whenever you watch the movie immediately after watching Objects in Space. And it was just super cool. And again, just this, it seems to be a weirdly specific tick that proves how capable this person is to be able to, like, point at exactly what it is they're pointing at without needing to look. Yeah, it was just really good and cool.
There's a trade agent that helps Mal open a safe, and they find out that there isn't much in that safe. And Zoe says,
"Finally,
oh, look,
we can retire for our life of crime."
The trade agent is actually voiced by Joss Whedon, even though it's played by an actual person.
He's just
No reason
switching
for
up
that
all
to
over
be true.
the
Yeah.
place.
That doesn't have to happen.
Apparently
but I'm
this
glad
was-
that it did.
Yeah, apparently this was just because there were stand-in voices in pre-production, and they just got left in, and they just worked those in. Miranda Baccarin is the computer's voice early on in the movie as well.
Oh,
because they were
on
just stand-in
Serenity?
voices. I don't know. I just read that was a thing, so I don't know where it was. I didn't look back
to
to
remember
figure
where the
out
computer
where it
voice
was.
is.
It might have been when the operative was looking at security footage. There might have been a voice that came up and said something.
Oh, maybe so. We'll have to pay more. Yeah, we'll have to look for that. Yeah.
That's all right. I'm planning on watching this movie again.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. So Mal reaches in and he pulls open the thing and the hatch lowers, and then he's like hollering down to the guy and he's like, "Hey, we're coming down to take everything out of there. I'm gonna need the password." And then he just shoots.
Jane just starts shooting them.
Okay.
Worst guard ever.
I don't know. But that whole conversation, he's like, "Listen, the leg will bleed a lot, and it's not going to be that bad." And the guy's just like,
I love
I don't
that
know if
so
I want to
much.
get
I
shot.
was thinking about a graze.
Yeah, you don't want to look like you just gave up.
There's the Mal we know and love.
Right.
I don't want to just hurt you more than I have to, but I want to make sure you're not in trouble.
Right, exactly. It's
perfect.
So good.
Yeah.
And we should talk too, because Firefly is a Western, apparently. This is the most Western thing that we've done in
Yes.
Firefly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
An actual old-fashioned bank
Big
robbery.
heist.
It's
Yeah.
just fantastic.
So River psychically hears town people talking about how they heard the gunfire and might go get the lawmen, but then she sees a flash and collapses. When Jane checks on her, she says, "Reavers." And we see a few Reaver ships outside with Reavers descending from them. Inside, Mal discusses with the guard about where he should shoot them or how he should hurt him to make it look like he didn't just give up. Jane informs Mal that they need to expedite plans due to Reavers. Mal tells the guard to get everyone inside the vault and lock it for their own safety. Our bank job crew is back on board the mule and leaving with haste. A man latches onto the side of the mule asking to go with him, and Mal tells him to go back and get inside the vault. He insists, and Mal says it would be too many, and he pushes him off, and as Reavers grab him, and Mal looks back and shoots him and kills him before the Reavers can do anything.
Does this work for you guys? Like, just this whole sequence?
Okay.
Spoiler alert, it super works for me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say it would work for me more if... what was the beat that we had with that guy just earlier?
He was the one who was pulling the pistol and was going to be the hero in the bank.
That's why. Yeah. I feel like had it been even maybe the guard, had it been somebody else that I had a moment to like a little more, that wasn't pitted against our crew right from the beginning, then it would have worked better for me, because I'm Team Mal on this one. Hey, don't slow me down. I have my people to save. Is that terrible?
No, not at
No,
all.
I
Okay.
think that may be where we're supposed
That's
to be.
where we're
I think
supposed
that
to land,
works,
because
yeah.
then we get that question from Zoe.
I think we're supposed to land there, but still be able to question it and go,
Yeah.
"Man,
Okay.
was that the right decision? That's a tough decision to make."
Yeah.
All right, good. In that case, yes, it works, because that's what happened to my brain.
It has one problem with me, and it's that I noticed that the mule is a 5-seater, and there's 4 people on it. And this was a problem that Joss Whedon was very upset about, because he asked for the mule to be smaller, and they made it bigger and
It
added
is
an extra
massive.
seat. And so they just tried to hide it in filming that there was a whole extra seat there, because they wanted it to be true in script that you
Yeah.
literally couldn't put another person on here without getting rid of something, because it would slow them down too much or
Right.
weigh
Right.
it down too much. That was supposed to be true in script, but visually I noticed that there's an empty seat. And I was like,
That didn't bother me, because I think Mal's fear that it could slow them down still works.
Sure
that
works.
I mean,
he
you got
wouldn't take
Mal on there,
anyone.
you got Jane, you got the payload.
Yep.
All of
So-
Jane's guns.
All of Jane's guns. So many guns.
not the grenades though, unfortunately.
Not the grenades. Do the Reavers work for you guys in this sequence?
They do. Yeah. The idea of the Reavers descending like a plague is actually
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
effective for me. I love that moment of foreshadowing that we get from River. That works. And then the visual of them descending, I feel less caught up in the threat of the Reavers by the time we're in the chase sequence.
Sure.
That's less effective for me. I like them as a natural disaster. I like that when the Reavers
yeah, like a
hit, there is
hailstorm.
no escape. You are done. So the chase sequence is less effective, particularly because I think we're running up against the limits of 2005 era CGI in a lot of that. But the Reavers as something that descends upon you and you are done. That the vault is literally the only hope.
Yeah,
that
you
these
are. You
townsfolk
stay in
have
there until you run out of
until
air.
you run out
Otherwise
of
they
air.
will- yeah.
Yes. That's brilliant. But yeah, ultimately the chase sequence loses me a little bit. How do you guys feel about that?
I really like it, and I think it feels good. But looking at it from the perspective of the show, I never heard them mention that Reavers do this. That they come down
Right.
the planet side
Yeah.
and attack towns. Usually
Well,
there's up in space, and if you run
right.
into them, it's bad news.
That's what I was thinking, but I like this better.
I do like this.
I
Yes.
like this better. I think that it makes the danger more imminent when they are a
Definitely
predator
so.
than when they're
Vultures.
Vultures, absolutely. I was going to say yes.
Yeah, I think that the only times that we spent significant conversation on the Reavers was the very first episode, Serenity, and then Bushwhacked, and then we didn't really deal with them a whole lot for the rest of the series.
And
There was a
remember, they
bunch of
never
other-
worked for me.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad that it works. Yeah, I think that it does work a lot better here in the
In this
movie at this
movie.
moment than in our first episode. Like this was, they're legitimately scary and a serious threat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I liked all of it.
This is, I think, where the movie is the most divergent from the series, because the series, I think, spent so much time talking about the relationship of the crew. And we had more of those, like,
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing like a kitchen table scene in this movie. And those
Oh,
were my
yeah.
favorite parts. Those were my
Yeah,
favorite
you're right,
things that I like so well. So I really have to just allow them to be two entirely different spaces. And the movie does work for me very well, because it's like watching one of the new Star Treks, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, it's got that kind of feel to it, which I love those movies too. It's great.
Right.
But it does feel wildly different from this, the found family that I loved so much in the Firefly series.
Yeah.
I think it's also because the movie's less an ensemble piece and more Mal's story, because I'm thinking about those kitchen table scenes, and he has the conversation with Book and he has the conversation with
Yes.
Inara. He
Right.
gets these moments
Yeah, sure,
that
you're
could
right.
have been crew moments, could have been family moments,
Yeah.
but they're focused on him and on his arc.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I think that this movie is pretty equally divided between Mal's story and River's story. And we're
Yes.
flipping between those two.
This is actually the scene where we mentioned in the commentary, this is what he was doing with Mal, trying to make him a little bit less of a hero, not
Yeah.
willing to sacrifice his job, his crew, not willing to put anything forth for the betterment of other people, because he's taking care of his and his own, and that's it. And that's all he's worried about. And that's making the tough decisions, being in the rough place. And that's going to arc, of course, toward our ending, where
Sure.
Mal decides sacrifices are good and can be made for the
Yeah.
betterment of things, and that he can believe in something. So as the crew speeds out of town, a Reaver shuttle pursues them. Jane asks why the Reavers aren't just blowing them up, and River says they want us alive when they eat us. It's a tough line.
That is, yeah. Don't like that.
Jane remarks how useful those grenades would be about now.
Right?
Zoe hails Wash and informs them of the Reavers. Wash flies to meet them. A spear on a line from the Reaver ship goes through Jane's leg and nearly pulls him off the mule. Yeah, it's so intense.
Yeah.
And Jane tells Mal, "You shoot me if they take me." And Mal steadies himself and takes
Don't
aim.
shoot me now!
Don't shoot me first. Mal steadies and after a couple of misses, ends up shooting the rope from the spear.
Which is
Great
impossible, but cool.
Well, here's the thing, though. He steadies, he tries twice, and he fails. And then he does it without thinking.
Yeah,
which is maybe the coolest Mal moment that we get.
Also, I feel like
yes,
just
exactly.
super indicative of Mal, like as like the quintessential Mal. When he makes plans, when he tries hard, he's gonna screw up. When he does it without thinking, that's when he sucsucceeds.
That's a good call.
That's a great point.
And I want to talk too about the intimacy between Wash and Zoe through this entire sequence. They're just these little pet names, these little interactions between them. You can do it. It's incredibly supportive. It's incredibly positive, even though they're doing something dangerous. There is no sense in this movie in which Wash is dismissive of Zoe's capability or vice versa.
Or vice
They are
versa.
God, isn't it
together.
nice?
Yes, it is.
Guys, it makes me real sad. Because Firefly season 2 could have been this.
What could have been?
Firefly season 5 would have been, the story of Zoe and Wash having their baby, which would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I've broken everyone's heart.
You
Let's
did.
get back to
Thanks for that.
Simon opens the cargo bay to Serenity, and Wash informs the bank job crew that they are going to try a barn swallow. Zoe scrapes the mule on some rocks, leaving the Reaver ship behind them to hit it more directly, but it does not stop that ship. Zoe turns around and heads straight toward the Reavers as Serenity catches them in the cargo bay. And part of the Reaver ship smashes in as well, sliding right up to Mal as he moves away just in time.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
such a
so
great
good,
action-packed
yeah.
scene.
Kinetic, it has weight, it has danger, it has urgency, it does everything that it's supposed to do. And brilliantly, it gets us a Reaver on board Serenity, which we can use as kind of functional punctuation for the next sequence.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
It's very well done. I have to agree.
Simon checks on River, who looks in shock and just says, I swallowed a bug.
Is that the best Riverism? Is that the best little non sequitur line from River?
No, I think my food is problematic is the best one.
There you go. The food is that's a good one too.
Fair.
I like that Kaylee runs to Simon going, Are
you
okay?
okay? Is he okay?
Mal is just really upset by this. A bloody Reaver pops up in the frame from under the skiff. He lunges at Mal, sharpened teeth, and Mal spins and draws, fires into the belly as Jane and Zoe both fire at the same time as well.
I love that so much. It brings me so much joy that we have this Reaver pop up and then like the camera swivels around and it's like all of our major hitters are just like pow, 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 pow. Okay, we're cool. Like, I love it. It's unnecessary because I feel like in the show we probably would have only had like maybe either Zoe or Jane would have been able to do that. But it's a funny moment and I love it so much.
Well, and it demonstrates how seriously they take the threat of the Reavers.
Yes.
Because these guys are not, with Jane perhaps as the sole exception, they're not generally inclined toward overkill.
Right.
But when this single Reaver pops up, they take him down as hard as they've taken down any threat in the entire series so
for
far.
sure. Yeah.
Good call.
So I think that does
Short
a really
of
good
kicking
job
him into a engine.
There's no comedic effect for a Reaver. Zoe tells Wash that there are no casualties. Wash says that they made a clean getaway with no one following. Mal starts to tell Wash where to head, and Simon sucker punches him.
Yep. I like Cool Simon. I really do. Cool Simon works for me. I like him better than bumbling, boring Simon that we had in the beginning in the early seasons. Although he was always sweet, but I like this incarnation.
Performance even more than I like Cool Simon that we get in Objects in Space, because throughout this entire exchange, and we got this too in the extended tracking shot through the beginning of the movie, there is the sense that Simon is badass. There is the sense that he's going toe to toe with Mal, but I also feel as though he's nervous. There's an energy there that makes me feel that he's holding on. He's doing a difficult thing. It's not the complete super confidence that we got when he was facing Jubal early.
Right.
I do
Which was
feel like-
weird. That one didn't work for me. Right.
I feel like without Objects in Space and what you get there, you could almost see Simon from the rest of the show standing up to Mal like this if it came down to Mal using his sister in this way. And he was like, this is the Simon that rescues his sister.
Yeah.
So there is that in him, and you know that's in there somewhere, and it's when someone steps up and tries to hurt his sister. And so maybe you can even read that in Objects in Space because his sister's in danger. Mal asks in Chinese if he wants a bullet in the throat. Simon tells Mal that him and River are leaving the crew. River gets a read off the dead Reaver about how they never lie down. And we're left to kind of ponder what that might mean.
Yeah.
Cut to,
nothing till the end of the movie.
Nothing till the end of the movie. Cut to Zoe questioning Mal.
Oh!
See?
The Reavers never lie down.
Yes.
I was going to make a joke about sleep deprivation, but never mind.
Sarah also never lies down.
Not last night.
Cut to Zoe questioning Mal about letting Simon and River go. Mal says at a certain point you got to stand on your own, and Zoe says, like that man that you wouldn't let on the mule. Mal says that they couldn't take the weight, and Zoe counters saying that they could have tossed the payload. Mal says they need the ship fixed, the crew needs food, and they'd be in trouble for not finishing the job. And Zoe says that in the war they would have never left a man behind, and Mal says maybe that's why they lost.
I don't know if this sequence works for me as well as they want it to, just because I've come to understand Mal and Zoe's relationship as being one where she absolutely will follow him into anything, and she trusts his judgment no matter what. I guess they weren't able to show us that in this movie because I'm thinking now I might have seen the movie before I saw an episode.
Oh, I absolutely saw this movie before I saw the show. Yeah.
So
I think that
in
this is
that
put in
case-
for the benefit for people who didn't see the show.
didn't even
If
know
this
that they were
was in
in
the
war
show,
together.
it would be Anara having this conversation
I
with
was
Mal.
just going to
There
say
you
that.
go.
Or Walsh
You're
or
absolutely
Book.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anara, I think, is the best
Yeah.
call, but even Book maybe. Yeah.
Anyone but Zoe
Yeah.
should
Yeah,
be having this
but
conversation.
with Zoe,
Yeah.
it bumps off me just a little
Honestly,
bit.
it worked for me. It's kind of nice to see, we see Zoe and Wash doing really, really well together. So it's kind of nice to see that maybe that relationship is starting to look a little bit
I like
different
that.
now. And maybe Zoe isn't quite as, under the thumb isn't quite right, but isn't quite as complacent with just all of Mal's decisions. And,
Sure.
yeah, maybe that's why her marriage is a little better now.
On the cargo bay, Jane questions what makes a person a Reaver while Kaylee and him clean up. Kaylee mentions Book's theory about the edge of the universe, the black, the loneliness driving them insane. River listens from above as Kaylee says it's bound to get lonely on the ship if the captain continues to drive everyone away one by one, just like Anara. Fade to Mal watching a video postcard that Kaylee took of Anara packing up her shuttle, and River smelling the bed, which is a weird moment.
That is weird. I missed that part.
Yeah, in the
kind of glad I
background.
did.
She definitely does that thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Smells like incense.
So it smells like perfume. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
It probably doesn't smell like that.
Probably doesn't so much, but
Maybe she just washed the sheets. You don't
Yeah.
know. She's
has
a
that
classy
great scent
lady.
of gain. Is what that is.
Tide fresh.
Anara says of Mal, that man doesn't know what he wants, and Mal puts down the device. Serenity is seen docking into a busy station. Kaylee gives Simon some parting advice, just like a worrying mother. You're too clean, it's a dead giveaway that you don't belong. And don't ride with anything that has a Captain 38 engine, they fall out of the sky.
Fall right out of the sky.
That was darling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love like worrying mother Kaylee.
Yes.
It's so
It was
great.
very sweet.
Cute. Oh.
Simon does take a moment, which I really appreciate, to ask River if she wants to stay on the ship. And she says it isn't safe. And as Simon walks away, she says, for them.
I didn't need the last beat. I thought that was implied. I was good with the ambiguity of
Yeah.
what River was saying
Sure.
without necessarily capping it with the for them.
But we've also seen the show.
I was going to say maybe another thing that was just for the
Sure, no, that's
moviegoers.
fair.
Yeah.
What we should have done was brought in a guest today who has never seen the show, and we just made them watch the movie.
Oh.
Get their thoughts. They would just spend half the podcast going, oh,
Right.
man, that makes so much
And then
more
this would be a 6-hour episode.
as opposed to the 5 hour and a half that's
Oh,
already
God.
Kaylee and Mal have a back and forth about the Tams leaving. That's when we get that line from Kaylee about how she hasn't had anything twixt her nethers that isn't run on batteries in a while.
God, I don't need to hear that.
I could stand here, Lil.
Another one of those lines that I would have sworn came from the series.
Yeah, for
Movie.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
so certain.
I feel like maybe it's an alternate universe thing. It's a Mandela effect.
Very
We
fine,
came
very
from a
fine.
universe where all of this happened in the series.
Where is the line where she says he could have made them family?
That was just before that. So.
Yeah, that I thought that was just about the closest that we got with that line there, and then at the very end, when we see the crew back together again, where we kind of reference that found family theme that's so prevalent in the series, and which I missed.
And I'm not really sure why we get this moment where Kaylee's kind of blaming Mal as if he's the reason why Simon never got into a relationship with her. But it does lead to this really great line where Mal says, if I truly wanted someone bad enough, wouldn't be a thing in the verse that would stop me from going there. And Kaylee says, tell that to Inara.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Sick burn.
I love Kaylee, though. She has always consistently, when somebody pushes up against her, she pushes right back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
gosh, I love that. And not in a way that's mean or vindictive, but in a way that is sharp and concise and fair. I like it.
And then we meet the Badger twins, right?
The Badger
That's what
twins.
I said. I said almost the exact same thing.
Yeah,
I
so
think
did
I probably got
Yeah.
it from you
I was
guys.
like, what is this?
That was not a Vinton original.
Oh, that's right. You were there. Yeah.
That was from two lovely ladies I know.
Sorry, I remember now.
We see Mingo and Fanty, the people who the bank job was for.
And listen, they're
Mingo
fine.
and Fanty, you guys.
Not
like,
Badger.
They are not
No,
Mark Shepard.
Mark Shepard,
Yeah.
come on back,
Like,
baby.
what are we even doing?
They're named after characters from a really old movie, but I don't know anything about that movie, so that's all I got for you. They try to trick Mal with which twin is which, but he always knows somehow.
Because Fancy's prettier.
That's apparently. Over drinks, they do some literal under-the-table business, and the twins demand 40% instead of their original 25% deal. River wanders into the large, busy club unnoticed, seeing an obnoxious ad for Fruity Odie bars, reportedly inspired by one of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons, where Homer has a Japanese ad made of him and he sees his own face, which I think is brilliant. I love the connection there. She gets flashes and whispers the name Miranda.
And then my favorite part of the movie happens.
This beautifully choreographed fight sequence is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is a spectacle to behold. I feel like I'm at the ballet and people's asses are getting kicked. It's amazing.
Oh my God, that's what ballet needs.
Yes.
Put
Ballet
sword in your hand.
fight scenes in the ballet. This,
Oh
put
man,
together.
Swan Lake, but with blood.
So yeah, the scene becomes quiet and echoey, and we get a change in color a little bit. We lose some color there.
She shrugs
And-
off her
Yeah.
shrug.
And I love how they always, even consistently in the movie, have River in such feminine clothing. And then she's doing these insane, like this weaponized.
They took grace and made it deadly.
Yep, nailed it.
Yeah.
You're the best, Sarah. I was going to dance around that for a while. Perfect.
So River attacks one of the patrons at the bar, and one by one, other patrons get up to attack her, and she starts fighting all of them, just taking
Right?
them out left
And
and
it's
right
amazing.
through this
It's
amazing
beautiful.
sequence, dancing on a pole up by the stairs, knocking people down. Mal and Jane take notice, and Jane says, "Hey, a tussle." The club goes into lockdown mode as River methodically continues showing off her fighting prowess. The twins to Mal say, "Do you know that girl?" And Mal says, "I really don't."
That's a great line. That is great.
Jane grapples with River, but she gets the best of him and takes him down pretty easily.
Yeah.
Mal fiddles with the box that his gun was deposited into when he came into the club and pulls it out on River from the stairs. At this moment, she pulls a gun on him as well from downstairs, and Simon enters, saying, "Eda koram na shmek." River falls to the ground and falls asleep. I looked up what this might mean, what language it might come from. Apparently, it's not exactly any specific language, but people have found that it's similar to a Russian thing, so you can kind of tweak it slightly, and it becomes this Russian saying that means for the hens to laugh at, which
Is
a lot of
defo
people
not
said-
something you would just like toss out in regular conversation?
Right.
So
Sure,
good
I
code
guess
phrase.
it
a
would
lot of
have
people
to be,
said
yeah.
that apparently this could be translated in Russian. It's like one of those things, if you translate something and translate it back,
Sure.
it changes. It could be the chickens have come home to roost, which is what Mal says later about the alliance and the
Okay,
Reavers.
sure.
And so it's a thematic thing in the film, and maybe that's what
Okay.
happened there is
Weird.
or somebody was trying to translate this properly and it got a little mixed up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you defo couldn't trust Google Translate in 2005.
So true.
It also apparently could mean just "this is very ridiculous" in Russian. It's also a possible
I kind
translation.
of like that too, actually. That sounds like something Joss Whedon might
So I
grab
found two
onto.
articles and they came to those two different conclusions.
Well, and I wonder how much Russian is even being spoken at this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet it's like a dead language.
Basically, yeah. It's pretty much Latin
Like
at
Latin.
this point.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
And
like that
we-
idea.
River knows Latin, though. We know that from the very first episode of the show.
Of course, Mal. That.
And there was some talk about how, of course, when you talk about superpowers from an American standpoint, from if you grew up during a certain time, the two superpowers, Russia and China. And so
Yeah.
Russian would be
Yes,
the other
yes.
language there to use. To
Oh,
get that
that's so
feeling.
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I like that.
I
Okay.
kind of like the idea of like there being a secret Russian government that's trying to fight against the
Sure.
Alliance too. Like they're trying to destroy the Alliance from within.
Oh man, they've got like
Well,
they
right.
have their own red room. Boom, back to the MCU.
Yes.
Figured it out.
It all fits. Yeah, because it's the Anglo-Sinai Alliance, which is presumably an alliance between the United States and China.
Yes,
So that would make sense that they would band together if there were someone that they needed to fight.
Yeah.
There may be depth and texture there. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Mal and Simon share a look. Jane groans and begins to move, so we all know he's not dead. Mal goes down and picks up River in his arms, and I love that scene. I
It's
love just the way
so
that she's
good.
draped in his arms.
It is lovely.
Meanwhile, aboard an Alliance ship, the Operative sees the event on surveillance and looks up info on Mal, where we learn that Mal's supposed to be 49 years old, guys. It shows his birthday, and then you know what day this was out, and there's a 49-year difference. He would be 49 years old.
Wow.
He's not 49 years old. I think
No.
he's just now 44, I think. On Serenity, Mal cuffs River down, and the crew has a conference. Mal asks Simon for an explanation, and Wash says, start with the part where Jane gets knocked out by a 90-pound girl, because I don't think that's ever going to get old.
This is the closest thing that we get to like a kitchen
Yes.
room
I
scene.
think you're right.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not telling fun facial hair stories.
No, it's not quite the same, but
Yeah.
but at least it
That's
is
right.
the
I think
crew
our
all
mustache
together.
story count in the movie is 0. Which is
Oh,
very
it's
sad for me.
so distressing.
Very
And
sad.
you know,
Very
it went from a
sad.
5-star to a 4-star movie just like that.
Yeah, it sure did. We'll have to superimpose.
That's the whole
yeah.
review, too. Not enough facial hair stories. Simon explains that this phrase is a safety installed in River that makes her fall asleep. Jane gets scared when he starts saying it, but Joey reassures
That
him
was
it
adorable.
only works
That
on
was
River.
so cute.
It's adorable.
Well, now I know.
Okay, clarify this for me. Did Simon implant this phrase in River? Has this been
No, I think he
implanted
said
in her
that
by
he
her
even
training?
said
Yeah, I
that
think he
somebody
said it was
told
given to
him.
him.
Yeah.
This is a pretty major retcon too, because there are a few times when that would have come in
Yes.
handy.
Oh
back
yeah,
in
it
the
would have been
show.
super helpful. Yeah.
Like, hey
Yeah.
Simon, could you just knock her out for like 5 minutes? That would be great.
Yeah.
She
Plus,
stabbed me.
he would have used it himself, I'm sure, to keep her safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Even arguably at the beginning of this film. If
Yeah.
he really didn't want her to go on the
Oh,
heist,
that's true. He could have just made her go to sleep.
he could have just
Take her down, Mal.
Yeah, quietly taken her,
That's a
taken
great
her
point.
into her room, knocked her. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't use it except in the most dire exigencies.
That's
but
true, yeah. And
And
may,
it
you
could
know
be
what?
that
Maybe
this
that's
is
part
a-
of his whole the Hippocratic Oath, the doctor thing. Like,
Oh, sure,
come on,
yeah.
yeah.
Like he only used it this one time because she was literally murdering everyone in the bar.
And it could be that he's never used it before. So he wasn't sure it would work, and 2,
Yeah.
wasn't sure what would happen if
Yeah.
he said
Sure.
it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good point too. Of course.
So I kind of like that. Only in the most dire situation, he tried it, and he was
Yes.
like, "Oh God, thank God, it just put her to sleep for a little bit," and now he knows.
Yeah. Now they all know.
oh no, it made her angrier. This was the worst thing I could do.
She's the Hulk now.
They lied to me.
How dare those shady guys do that?
Guess what I told him, guys?
He freaking bought it. God. Stupid back birth.
Mal loses his temper when he realizes that Simon knew she could go crazy violent, and the whole time that she was on the ship.
Yeah.
He asks who they're going to find when she wakes up, the girl or the weapon. And Jane brings up that he thought they were leaving them. That was the plan. The plan's done. They're gone, right? And Kaylee says they can't, especially not now. Jane asks Mal why he would bring her back in the first place, and Mal is speechless. I like this. I like this a lot because he's a good guy. He just has a hard time admitting it, even to himself. He doesn't even believe it. And this is him seeing that he's a good guy and going, I don't know what to do with this side of me.
Yeah.
Well, and what you said before about Mal being externalized into the characters of the crew. Here we've
Yes.
got Jane as his pragmatic, selfish businessman side.
Sure.
And we've got Kaylee as the heart of Serenity, as she
Always.
so often is.
Jane says she goes woolly again. We're going to have to put a bullet in her.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice try.
And I do like this scene here where River mouths these words along with Mal. They do like a split scene, and Mal says it's crossed my mind, and she mouths that along,
Yeah.
Yes.
listening psychically to everything that's going on in
That
this
was
room.
nice.
I
yeah.
love that she mouths it. I really hate the split screen.
Oh yeah.
the split. Yeah, the
That's-
split screen's weird.
Completely outside of the visual language of this show of this movie. We've never done that before, have we?
And we don't do it again. Yeah, it's a little strange.
Wash suggests that they talk to someone known as Mr. Universe. David Krumholtz is our next guest star on this film.
So should I know who this guy is?
This guy starred in the TV show Numbers.
Yes.
He is
Nope.
known
Which is
for his
awesome.
role in the Harold and Kumar movies, the first two Santa Claus
That's awesome.
movies.
Oh,
He's the elf.
but
And 10 Things I Hate
10
About
Things
You.
I Hate About You.
Yes.
That's what you
Yes.
should know him from.
Yes.
Yes.
He was the elf in the Santa Claus. I only ever saw the first one, but I always liked him. He was real cool.
Well, he does a good job
Yes.
as Mr. Universe, who is a weird character.
Who's a
This is
weird
a question
character
I
that
wanted
does
to-
not work for me. It's the one.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the one. Okay. Let me put it this way. I like him. I like the girlfriend. I love the. We'll get there, but the kill me with a sword, Mal. How weird is that?
How weird
Like
is that?
I love all of it.
Yeah.
Except just his existence
Yes.
in universe
Yes.
is weird.
Everything about him, I totally buy, but does feel forced in narratively.
Yeah.
There's a storm cloud around this planet, necessary for the story.
Sure.
He has all the ability to send out signals, necessary for the story. Also, he has a backup system, necessary for the story. He has a love bot, seems like a throwaway joke, necessary for the story. And
Well, it's Chekhov's
well
love
timed.
bot.
Yeah,
There you go.
that could also be the name for this.
The problem for me with Mr. Universe is that he doesn't fit into the metaphor.
That's
Firefly is
metaphor.
a story of the Old West. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Yeah, what is
transported
he?
into
Smoke signals?
Exactly.
What is he
does he
doing?
represent
Why, though?
in that world? What
Yeah.
is he functionally within that metaphor? It doesn't work. It is an absolute sci-fi concept
Yes.
forced into a show that is
For all intents and purposes,
yeah.
Western.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. He doesn't speak to that Old West conflict. So I'm a little confused by that. It would have been interesting if we could have done something that was a little more resonant. If it had been,
yeah.
I don't know, some kind of representation of the coming of mass media or the coming
Sure.
of connectivity in a way. But it's
Or
not
if he
exactly.
had been maybe, if he hadn't been so young, if the casting had been different, and if he had been a brown coat and he was something like if he was
Sure.
trying to undermine the alliance by sending out
If it was a Russian.
many ways that it could have fit in story a little bit better, but
Yeah, no, it is
I
a
like
little weird.
what you're saying, and I would like to read your fan fiction.
yeah.
So we zoom into Mr. Universe's home past many satellite dishes in a storm to where he sits in front of numerous monitors all buzzing with activity. He excitedly watches the surveillance from the club during River's attack while video messaging with Serenity. He says that there wasn't anything about this on the news or in authority channels. He had to break in to watch it, but someone else already broke in and watched it before him.
Right.
He brings up his love bot who sits in the background, which seems like a weird joke, but will be important to the plot later. At Mal's suggestion, he looks at the moment where River switched to see what might have triggered her and finds it was an advertisement with subliminal messaging. The Alliance has apparently been trying to trigger her to find her. They also notice that River whispered Miranda and wonder what this might mean. We cut to Simon cleaning up his sister and comforting her while she struggles with everything that's going on with her and struggles just with
Which is hard to
not
watch
knowing
again.
who
Yeah.
she is and when she could switch, and you yourself, it's like that Hulk thing, not knowing
Yeah.
when you could become this other person that is
Right.
destructive and harmful.
What does she say? I never know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Ugh.
was so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really difficult
Yes.
to watch.
He asks about Miranda, but she can't seem to tell him what it is. River tells Simon to ask her, and Simon says, Am I talking to Miranda now? And she shoots him this look and says, No, that's not it.
Adorable brother-sister moment, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It worked perfectly for me.
I don't have a gif of that moment for some reason. So right after we're done here, I'm going to go make one.
All right. River is hurting emotionally, like we're saying here, and asks Simon to put a bullet in her. But he comforts her, saying things are going to get, or he comforts her, and she says things are going to get much worse.
It's like she knows how stories work.
We cut to the operative arriving face to face with Inara, and then quickly cut
man.
to Serenity landing.
Okay, what did you guys think of this 3.5 second scene between Inara and the operative? Because I kind of love it forever and always.
Yeah, I like it
Yeah.
so quick, and you get no information. You're just like, oh God, he's there.
Yeah.
I love when you see Inara is doing, that companion thing where she's pleasantly looking at this person and then she seems to recognize him or realize who he is or what he is or something. And you just, Miranda Baccarin's control over her own facial features is so exquisite in this moment when you see that smile just very slowly falter and then break into this scared grimace just before we completely break away from it. And no dialogue, no nothing. He doesn't touch her. He doesn't do anything. We just see them together, and it's perfect, and then we move on. I love it.
Put so much time and energy into Inara's sets and her costume and God knows her dialogue that sometimes it's easy to overlook how good Marina Baccarin is.
Right.
But that is, you're absolutely right. I completely agree.
We had talked about before in Heart of Gold about that brilliant nonverbal conversation that Inara and Mal have together, where it's all just in their facial expressions, and it's just so good. So yeah, Marina Baccarin, kind of a national treasure.
Yes, definitely a talent.
So Serenity lands and the cargo door opens and we see Book there to warmly welcome the crew. Book is settled down apparently, and the crew has stayed in this town with him before since we saw them last. Kaylee happily picks up a small child that she seems to know and that seems to know her.
So charming.
And even
beautiful.
Jane greets a buddy.
Yeah, with like a big old hug. I love it. Yeah. This is like, they mentioned at one point in the show that like Persephone is becoming like a second home. It seems like Haven has now become like the new second home.
Yeah.
Haven. Oh, sorry. My heart's already breaking. I love this sequence. It works beautifully for me. I love Book and Mal here. This is excellent, Book and Mal.
Yeah. So we fade the night as the crew and friends sit around the fire. I like that Jane's playing the guitar.
I love
Playing
that
the guitar.
so much.
This is an excellent,
Do you
excellent little
think
addition.
this is very, very, very important? Did he play his own personal theme song?
Yes.
That is the only song he plays,
It's
right?
the only song he knows,
And then
right?
said-
He opens and closes with it every time.
Yes.
And then at one point in the night, he goes, guys, I've been working on the song. I just wanted to show you this thing I'm working on. Take my life. And they're all like, oh, I like this. This is good. This is a good song,
He
Jane.
knows 2 songs: "Hero of Canton" and "Ballad of Serenity," and the tuning song.
It's a favorite of his.
Yeah, mine too.
Book and Mal talk away from the group. Mal says he came here to hide. Book warns him that he can tell from the way that the Alliance is handling this that they've sent an operative, and that is really bad. Yes. Mal says, I could have left her there, almost not knowing why. Again, am I a good guy?
Yeah.
Why didn't I just leave her? I had a way out. And Book said, that's not your way, Mal. And Mal says, I have a way? Is that better than a plan?
Yes, it is, by the way.
It is. Which ties us back to this earlier scene when they're on the mule and he shoots
And the
without
shooting.
thinking and accomplishes his goal.
Yep, that's a
Now,
good call,
without
Sarah.
a plan, but with a way. Yeah, he's much better now.
It's so true.
Book tells Mal that the only thing that's going to get him through this is belief. And Mal says, sermons make me sleepy. I'm not looking for this. And Book says, why do you think I'm always talking about God when I talk about belief?
Right.
He warns that an operative is dangerous because of how strong he believes. He kills and never asks why. Mal
Which is
says-
what makes him an excellent villain, by the way.
Yes.
Moving on.
Yeah. Well, and it's a little bit, it calls back a little bit to what the operative said about madness versus love, that love is a good deal more dangerous. Love is sort of on that same level as belief, I think, as this virtue that drives you rather than any specific goal or end game or a plan.
Well, in a sense, he has a way rather than a plan. I like this very much, but I don't think that Book is right. The operative doesn't murder without asking why. He understands why. He actually has belief.
Because he's a tool.
Not-
He's a weapon in the system.
Right.
Like
But it's
that's,
not obedience.
Yeah,
He's
I was-
actually moving toward a goal that he
Right.
completely understands. He's creating a better world in which he will have no place himself. He is
Yes.
doing what he does in order to achieve this great thing. So I think Book is wrong, but certainly pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I tend to agree.
Yeah.
And we get that little moment with Mal and Book where Mal says, it's of interest to me how much you seem to know about the world.
Yeah.
Book says, I wasn't born a shepherd. And Mal says, you'll have to tell me about that sometime. And
Yes,
Book replies, no, I don't.
Which is so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yes.
I love that.
Except that's also Whedon teasing the audience.
Yeah.
It's also, hey, we could have this conversation right now, but we're not
We're not
gonna.
No time.
Cut to River dreaming back in her class, everyone starting to lay down, and flashes of death, but her refusing to lay down.
Right.
Switch to Wash, waking Mal because Inara has hailed for him on video from the companion training house. She says that she could use a hand with some townfolk and would like Mal to come. The crew listens in and scoffs when Mal says Kaylee's been missing
crew
you.
listening in and like eating popcorn or whatever.
First of all, where did
Literally.
they get popcorn? Secondly, I love that they're chugging it in the street. They're all like, oh, boo, no.
So
It's
good.
so
So much
so
fun.
good.
Yeah.
This is our kitchen table scene.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is our
I
dining
think
room
this
scene.
is the close. Yeah. I think
Is
this
everybody
right.
listening in on mom and dad's
The
conversation?
kids having a good time while
Yes.
mom and dad are taking care of business, right?
Love it.
No one asks to have that popcorn. You know Mal's going to have a stern conversation with Wash later. You're eating that before dinner, man. What are you doing?
Mal mentions that Inara left some stuff, which will later explain her outfit change and how she gets her weapon. That's what was apparently in the box. That's why that whole dialogue is there.
Okay.
I do like that this was pointed out to me.
Nope.
Online, it was pointed out to me that in this scene, you get to see all 4 of Mal's scars that he got throughout the TV show.
Oh.
Yeah.
From the train job, out of the gas, Shindig,
Yeah.
these different scars that he's accumulated. They're all shown here
The
on
big
display.
one on his shoulder is from Shindig, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
On his
didn't
left
notice
shoulder
that.
from
What
where
a
the bullet
wonderful
grazed.
touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the call, Mal makes it clear that he knows this is a trap, but they're going anyways because Inara may be in trouble. Romantic Kaylee asks, why must it be a trap? Mal says, did you see us fight? No. Trap. They come close to the training house and see no sign of alliance. Mal leaves Zoe in charge and then says, remember, if anything happens to me or you don't hear from me within the hour, and then flips what we expect him to say by saying, you take the ship and you come rescue me.
Yes.
What? And risk my ship?
Well, this is my ship now. Mal says, I mean, it's cold out there. I don't want to get left. We see a brilliant mountainside town right out of an Asian rendition of Lord of the Rings. And
Oh yeah, kind of Rivendell.
Yeah,
See that?
yeah.
Sure.
And we cut to Inara lighting incense at a shrine. Mal kneels at the shrine, disguised, quote unquote, with
Dear
a decorated
Buddha, please
fabric
bring me a
draped over his
pony.
Oh, he's the worst and the best.
Inara is immediately upset for him coming, knowing it was a
Right.
trap. She tells Mal that he can't handle this man, and that the operative enters.
How does Inara know who this guy is?
Well, I
She
don't
knows
think that she.
what this
That's
is.
exactly
Okay,
right.
okay, all right.
Exactly right.
How does Inara know what this guy is? Well, companions get, I guess,
That's-
preferential
yeah.
treatment.
She probably knows a lot about the alliances ins and outs.
Yeah.
She
that's
does, and she has just a fundamental understanding and insight into human character. too.
Right, right.
That was
She's-
my reading too. That she
Yeah.
sees the way he holds himself. She sees
Right.
the way he moves, and she
Like how
understands
dangerous
immediately
this
how
man
dangerous
is.
this guy is.
And again, didn't have to threaten her with rape.
Yep.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
And I love
Who'da
this.
thought?
I love this bit of scene that happens immediately where she kneels back at the shrine and Mal says, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm praying for you
Praying
now." And
for
the
you.
operative says, she's very thoughtful. But I mean it when I say I don't mean you any harm.
Although she's also lighting a bomb because
She totally is. Yeah. You know, Inara getting the job
A
done.
very well-timed bomb.
Yeah, also
Extremely
one
well-timed.
was
That bomb is
super
made out
long,
of
just fusing
narrativium. Yeah. It's a narrativium bomb. Again, the operative being just the coolest dude
Yeah.
through this whole scene.
cool.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yep.
This is great narrative craft because in this phase of his experience, the operative is something of a benevolent antagonist. He actually doesn't want anything bad to happen to Mal. It just so happens that their goals are crossed.
Right.
yes.
Mal wants to keep River safe, or at least wants to keep River out of the hands of the Alliance. The operative needs to kill her or
Right,
retrieve her.
Yeah.
It's really beautifully balanced. And yeah, the operative is just the coolest. You
He's
guys.
just,
the coolest.
Yeah.
The operative says that he thinks Mal is beginning to understand the dangers of River, saying this girl will rain destruction down on your ship. She's an albatross, Captain. And Mal says, way I remember, albatross was a ship's good luck till some idiot killed it. To Inara, he then
Love
says,
that.
yes, I've read a poem. Try not to faint.
Beautiful. All of this is
The
great.
poem he
Yes.
mentions there is the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Sure.
The operative warns Mal that he can't beat the Alliance, and Mal says he just wants to be left alone, which the operative offers that he can do that, but only if he's given River.
Which seems fair.
Yeah. I really like that when Mal says he should have offered him money, the operative counters with, if he acts sweet, then Mal's going to react a certain way. If he acts like a threat, he's going to act a certain way. And he has no time for games here.
Yeah. God, he's
Yeah, he
so
thinks right into the
good.
situation.
He is so good.
Which
Yeah.
is an exchange that reminds me of Inara. Like, that's how Inara reads people. She has that
yeah.
understanding of the people that she's dealing with, too.
Yes.
So there's, again, we get another symmetry.
Is there like an operative training house somewhere?
I'm wondering if it's all the same program. It's all
Oh
the
my
same
god, it
academy.
really is. Yes, it's all the
boarding
exact
It's
school.
same.
all the
Boys
red
over
room.
here,
Right.
girls over here.
You start off in the same school, and at a certain point, you split.
Girls
Are you-
become
are you gonna be a
companions,
companion or are you
boys
gonna be-
become operatives. It's a little bit sexist, but we're working on it.
I choose to believe
we
you can
assume that
choose
there are
either.
male companions too, though, right?
Well, yeah, sure, and maybe some female operatives.
Yeah, you get to choose.
Definitely
There's a
female
split.
operative.
And you go, am I going to be an operative or am I going to be a companion?
Here is a puppy. Do you hug it or kill it?
This will decide your
This is the
fate.
personality test right here.
Gosh. Is the gun, well, does the gun have blanks or real bullets? And do I know? I hug the puppy.
Yes, and then no. The operative informs Mal that he has a warship in deep orbit with missiles trained on Serenity ready to shoot. But Mal pulls out Serenity's pulse beacon and says, "You do that, best be making peace with your dear and fluffy lord."
Love
And he
it.
throws the device to him.
It's the greatest thing. This is Mal as an improviser, as a rogue, as
Yes.
someone who has engaged in the shadiest of dealings. I don't know what deep orbit is. Like,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
this is one of these moments where Firefly is only barely a sci-fi show.
Yeah.
I don't know what deep orbit
Does that mean like super close to the planet or
I
like
mean,
really outside of
I
the
think it means
atmosphere?
they're far enough out that that's why they weren't noticed when Serenity came in and
Right.
said, "Oh, we didn't see
Okay.
anybody."
Okay. But the way that orbits work,
I don't know.
Either orbiting or not, right?
you don't get
Yeah.
to choose. Like,
You're either pregnant or not. It's not.
I'm deep pregnant at the moment.
Pregnant.
God, that sounds horrifying.
The operative tells Mal after a bit of back and forth that you can't make me angry. And Inara counters, please spend an hour with him.
Right.
Unnecessary in this exact moment in our.
Yeah.
You're not really helpful. Like, haha, chuckle, chuckle, but.
Then the operative informs Mal that he wants to deal with the situation like civilized men. And when he informs Mal that he is unarmed, Mal pulls his pistol and shoots him in the chest.
Which I thought was
Headshot, Mal.
great.
Come on, headshot.
Right.
But that's not Mal. Mal always goes for the chest throughout what
You
we've
gotta get
seen
center
anyways.
mass, man. Sometimes you can't waste your time with like
right.
head wounds. You're
That's
gonna
right.
miss.
He just shot a rope. Anyway.
Yeah, but he wasn't planning on it. No, he's
That's
planning on shooting the operative.
That's true. Of course, the operative is wearing body armor and a fight ensues that Mal doesn't look very favorable in.
No.
And Inara also gets knocked down when she tries to step in.
Man, the operative sure does just beat the shit out of Inara, doesn't
No,
he?
really did. Yeah. That,
He
that
like
startled
clearly
me.
doesn't want to fight Inara. I like that the way he fights Inara is by throwing her and getting
Like
her out of
knocking
the
her, like
situation.
getting her in the gut so that she'll be winded
Yeah.
and not be
He's
in
like,
this
so
fight.
I want you out of the fight. I don't want
Yeah.
to focus on you.
Yeah.
yeah, but the violence against Inara isn't gendered in the same way as it was with Jubal early. Like when
Yeah.
he slaps her,
Yes.
that is, there's something unpleasant about that.
Sure,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And
yeah.
I don't get that same sense from the operative.
Yeah,
Right, no,
more
the
so.
operative
Yeah.
absolutely is just trying to get her out of the way
Yeah.
and like get
Because
her
he's focused
down
on
and
Mal.
out as
Right.
quick as possible. Yeah, it's
Because
not.
Mal is who
yeah.
he needs to fight.
He's not going to just backhand her across the room.
Right. Oh, jeez.
Mal takes a beating, only getting a couple of shots, and Inara is again thrown aside by the operative when she tries to attack. As Mal is on the ground, the operative draws his sword, saying, "Nothing here is what it seems. He is not the plucky hero. The Alliance isn't some evil empire. This isn't the Grand Arena." And Inara says, "And that's not incense." He turns and looks, and the incense stick burns away, rather like a fuse, and
Yes.
flash bomb explodes.
Well, you guys, I mean, like, okay, it's not a narrativium bomb. It's just voice activated. It's like when you say, "Hey Google," and your phone lights up.
That just happened to everyone
Hey,
who's listening to this
incense.
podcast.
Yep.
Or possibly, "Hey Siri."
Covered all bases.
Mal and Inara leave in her old shuttle and reunite with Serenity.
What have you done to my shuttle?
Yeah, it's not your shuttle. Serenity takes off, dropping some devices behind. The operative tells his men to track the ship's navsat, but those devices they left all had navsat signals to keep the Alliance from tracking them, so they find several. Inara talks to the crew, echoing Book's words that this operative is dangerous because he is a believer. He's intelligent, methodical, and devout in his belief that killing River is the right thing to do.
Right.
Jane then responds, "So no reward?"
Jane.
Jane.
They ask if he said anything about Miranda, saying it's on River's mind and maybe why they are after her. But Inara says no, only suggests that maybe whatever it is, it may pose a threat to the Alliance. Jane loses his temper with Mal's decision making, and Mal says, "You want to run this ship?" And Jane says yes.
Yes.
Mal says, "Well, you can't."
Well, you can't.
Which I love. I love that.
Another one?
Another one.
I
that's
swear that
so
it was in the
classic.
Part of it
series?
from the show. Yeah.
This is so weird because,
Yeah.
Mandela effect. It has to be the only explanation for this. Jane rants for a little bit, screaming as Mal turns to walk away, "Hey, I'm talking to you." And Mal turns and ends asking how many people died under Mal's watch during the war. Zoe tells him he wants to leave this room.
Yeah.
He agrees.
Damn
and
right
walks
I
off.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I
is
love
really
the
good.
way Inara puts her hand on Kaylee as they start yelling.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, "Come here." It's like a
Yeah.
mother protecting her child, like
So
while
wonderful.
people
Yes.
are fighting. Yeah.
I love how like cool, calm, and collected Zoe is whenever she just says her one, like, you want to leave this room.
Yep.
And Jane, I loved, damn right I do. And then just like saunters off. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Right. Inara approaches Mal and says, "This isn't the war, Mal." And Mal turns, eyeing her. "Are you telling me that because you think I don't know?" And Inara says, "You came looking for a fight." And he says, "No, I came looking for you." And she says, "I just want to know who I'm dealing with. I've seen too many versions of you to be sure."
Yep.
Fair.
Very fair.
Yes. And Mal and Inara walk off. Simon says to
Drink.
Kaylee and Wash, "We'll get off. River and I'll get off at Haven and find some." And then Kaylee says, "Nobody's saying that." And Wash says, "Nobody but Jane is saying that." Back to Mal and Inara, continuing their discussion in the other room. Mal gets frustrated, thinking Inara is tearing him down in front of his crew. She says she isn't.
Right.
But he says she fogs everything up for him.
Always has.
Does
She
this
says, "I
work?
wish
Okay,
you
does
weren't
this
here."
conversation work for you guys?
100% for me, yes.
Yeah.
It's a little, I can feel like it doesn't, but then at the same time, I don't know, I kind of go back and forth on it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at as well.
I think there's a point at which this conversation intersects with the discussion of Mal's faith that doesn't quite work for me. I feel as though we're drawing an intentional parallel there that doesn't quite work for me. But as a conversation about Mal and Inara, it absolutely works for me. Yeah.
I think it doesn't quite work for me because it feels like he's blaming her for a thing that both of them were in the wrong about. And he's not taking responsibility for how their relationship was a complete mess.
I think that's true.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just get
But that
frustrated.
doesn't necessarily mean that he's right.
That's true.
Yeah. And I don't think I necessarily saw it that way as blame, as so much as I think he's
You
frustrated
fog
with
everything
himself.
up.
Yeah, but you fog everything up and spin me about. You always have. But but I think what he's saying is that I can't concentrate. I can't make I can't make the decisions that I need to make. I can't.
Right.
Well, then he needs to say that and not use you
Oh, yeah.
phrases.
But how many
Okay, that's
times
fair.
does somebody in an argument say the right thing?
That
way?
is-
I
that's
think it's
true,
pretty
yeah.
real
Yeah.
life that,
I think
he
it's just,
wouldn't.
again, that dysfunctional relationship aspect
sure.
of them that I'm just like, oh my God, don't care. Like, I defo liked it better whenever you were all like, "Dear Buddha, bring me a pony."
We can definitely agree that after Serenity, they need like at least 6 months couples counseling before they do
Definitely.
anything.
God, they just
I
need
think
to see other people, you guys. Like, they just need to not be together.
Where is Saffron now? I mean, everything's calmed down a
What
little
is
bit.
she doing?
Why did we kill Nandy? That's what I want to know. She was the girl from Mal.
We cut to River stepping through the dream classroom once again, seeing an Earth-like planet through her tablet, and there is blood on her forehead from where the thing was injected earlier on.
yeah.
She sees flashes of decaying bodies, and a Reaver grabbing her wakes her up. We cut to Jane drinking heavily in the other room. Looking up at where River is, he grabs his gun and approaches, muttering, "Enough of this nonsense" in Chinese. Jane said he thought it was noble the way that Simon protects his sister, yet he's going to kill her. I don't know if that flows for me very well.
Yeah.
I guess you're supposed to just insinuate that he's been drinking a lot, so he's making a bad decision, I guess. River is hiding on the ceiling, though, when he enters. Again, I like that.
Yeah.
It's like a
It's really
2-beat,
good, yeah.
right?
We cut to the rest of the crew as they hear a gunshot. Rushing to where it came from, the room is locked, but they see Jane laying on the ground. All but Simon rush to get in another way. Simon waits and sees River, who opens the door, hits him in the throat, and knocks him out. She has Jane's gun. Zoe says she has sealed off the bridge. Mal goes through the vents to get to the bridge as the crew looks elsewhere. Which, my first thought in this was, where were these vents when Saffron sealed off the bridge? But then I realized he comes up where the rooms are, and she actually sealed off that door.
Yes.
So at first I freaked out, but I was like, no, that makes sense. Okay.
Right.
Mal sneaks up on River, who is sitting at the control panel, and she points the gun in his face without even looking at him.
Yeah.
That beat there. Mal
This is not your
questions
moment,
her.
Captain.
Mal questions her about what the operative said about her only being a weapon. He says, "Are you right? Because I've staked my life on you being a human being, and if I'm wrong, you should shoot me." And she cocks the gun.
She
And he's like, "Or we could talk more."
Yep.
I love that so much.
There's a really subtle detail there too when she cocks the weapon that the gun itself is locked to the camera. So it is completely static in the shot. And as she moves it, the world kind of tilts around it. It's
I did
a
not
tiny
notice
little
this.
incidental detail, but it's beautifully done. There's clearly some physical connection between the
Yes.
gun and the camera.
That's
Right.
I
wonderful.
just love that stuff.
No, that's great. No, absolutely.
River shows him the planet she pulled up on the screen is Miranda. The crew talks about how this planet is uninhabitable. A few settlers died there trying before the war. River explains to Simon that she had to show them and couldn't let him make her sleep, which is why she knocked him out.
Yes, sure.
The history of Miranda has been erased, it seems. Unfortunately, the way to Miranda is filled with Reaver territory.
Yeah.
At that moment, the crew is coming in for a landing in Book's little town, but they notice smoke and destruction. Bodies lay scattered on the ground. Kaylee finds the young boy that she held earlier, now dead. Mal finds Book, badly injured and dying. He calls for Simon to come help. Mal talks to Book and says, Shepard, don't move. Book says, I won't go far. This mirrors to me the time that Book got shot in the episode Safe,
Right. Yeah.
which I really like.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh,
You just lay
stay out
there
of the
being
way of
all
bullets
ironical.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to be after being shot, I think.
there. Sure.
And Mal gets sentimental, saying it shouldn't have been you. Alliance should have hit us, should have hit me. Being that good captain, saying this should have happened to me. And Book says, that crossed my mind. He
That's
points
sad,
at
but I love
the
Book.
ship that had apparently attacked the town and says, I shot him down. And he says, I killed the
guys.
ship that killed us. Not very Christian of me.
I would
love
argue that
Book.
point, but I see what he's saying.
And Mal does assure him, you did what was right. And Book says, coming from you, that means almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Which I really love.
This is such a great exchange.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I love them
This is
both.
why I'm probably just mostly going to be reading through it a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
And he says,
Take
Doc,
me on the feelings train.
I'll bring you around. I look to be bored by many more of your sermons. And Book says, you can't order me around, boy. I'm not one of your crew. And Mal says, yes, you are, which I love. I
Yeah.
love. Oh, it's right at the heart.
That's the moment where I break.
Yeah,
you are.
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Especially
are.
with
Not
everything
on
we've
your
talked
crew.
about on the
Yes,
show,
you are.
about found family and
Yes.
what it means to be part of this crew. Yes, it means so much here. Book says, I don't care what you believe, just believe it. As he slips away and his blood leaves, his hand was on Mal's face and his blood leaves like just a bit of an imprint on Mal's face as it slips away there. And Jane and Simon run up. Simon slows down, realizes that Book has passed away. And Jane asks why they only sent one. Why aren't they waiting for them if they knew they were coming? And Zoe realizes they didn't know they were coming.
She's so smart here. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I love that she comes to that realization
I love that
so
it's
quick.
Zoe's realization. Yeah.
Oh, it's
So they go to
horrifying,
contact anyone that's ever sheltered them, that's ever worked with them. But it looks like everyone else has suffered a similar fate. Mal talks on video to the operative who says he is sorry and that Mal should have dealt with him before it came to this. He says, if your quarry goes to ground, leave no ground to go to.
Ugh, he's such a good
He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
it
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
awful.
this is deplorable and awful and heinous.
Right.
But when you want to be
Excellent
a good
villain,
villain,
though.
excellent villain.
Yeah.
Excellent
Yeah.
villainy.
Yeah. And we get a little bit of insight into who the operative here is because Mal says, I don't murder children
Yeah.
when the operative accuses him of this being his fault. And the operative says, I do if I have to.
Yeah.
Mal then asks the operative if he even knows why he's doing what he's doing for the Alliance. And the operative says, no, I don't have to. I don't need to. I just believe in something greater than myself, a better world, a world without sin. And Mal says, so me and mine got to lay down and die so that you can live in your better world? And the operative explains, no, I'm a monster. I'm a necessary evil. This world isn't for me.
I love that exchange so much that it took me, no kidding, 5 times through this movie to catch what Mal says. So me and mine have to lay down and die, which is echoing everything that happened on
the
Miranda and
Reaver.
echoing
Without
Yes.
even knowing it,
Yeah.
he's echoing, yeah.
To lay down and die.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. I like that.
I love the operative's perspective on this kind of utilitarian perspective. I can be a
Yes.
bad guy. I can do these monstrous things because there's no place for me in what comes next.
Right. He's
That's
leaving a legacy. Like he believes that
stunning.
he is leaving
Yes,
this legacy of a better
exactly.
world and leaving behind something that's going to live beyond him. And there is no place for him there. And it's so cool, right? Like how often do you
Yeah.
get a villain who's able to like twist that and give that philosophical perspective when you're just like, well, okay, wow, actually that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh dear.
Not
Yeah.
everyone is the hero of their own story. Some are the villains of their own story.
Oh,
it's
interesting.
so powerful.
Know it and accept it as an ultimate good.
Yeah.
Yep. Which makes them kind of a hero.
Yeah, well, it's what Book was talking about that belief that this guy has and how it's going to be what drives him so much. Ooh, that's very good.
So the operative threatens Mal that every moment that he keeps River from him, more will die. And Mal says, you think I care? And he replies, of course you care. You're not a Reaver, Mal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as the operative tries to continue talking, Mal shuts it off, not caring anymore.
Yeah.
Sadly looks off into the distance. Mal goes to the crew, telling them to make some adjustments to the ship, gather bodies. The crew is very upset by what he's ordering them to do. Quickly, it becomes apparent that he wants to make Serenity look like a Reaver ship. He is resolved.
Yeah. Which is a great plan.
Yes.
But yeah, I can see where the timing makes people, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the pain
when
that they're feeling.
Kaylee, her voice cracking is just like, these people are our friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. Mal has finally decided that like they are going to they're going to cut through this corner of space. And they're going to get to the bottom of this and figure out like what is worth all of this. And they talk about a lot in the commentaries and in a lot of the notes for the show how Serenity is like the 10th character on this show.
Oh, I like that.
How
Yes.
because we are so aware of Serenity's spaces and what she looks like and what she feels like, and we can like just tell like where we're at like within her, and she's caring for all of our crew and stuff like that. And so to see this defilement of her is very difficult and unsettling.
All the more so coming out of Objects in Space, where we have Serenity personified in the form of River.
Yeah.
That's it. You're right. She is such a character now, and I love that we treat this as though it's something serious. I love that it's not just a plan, and it's not just about the bodies. It is about Serenity. It's about what we're doing to her.
Yeah.
What are we turning her
Dehumanizing
into?
this thing. Yeah.
It's beautifully done. What do we make of Mal's turn here? Because if there is a moment when he gets faith or decides that he wants faith, when he begins to believe, it has to be this moment.
Yeah.
Because he is now no longer running.
Right.
This is when his arc changes entirely. Does this work for you? Are you convinced by this? What is the moment that motivates this change in Mal?
Is it that all of his are having to lay down and die, and he believes that is inherently wrong and that shouldn't be the way that it is, and so he's going to fight against that?
It certainly could be.
I kind of feel like the operative has forced his lens wider to see more
sure.
than just his crew, to see
Yeah.
that everyone that's ever helped him is now dying.
Yeah.
And the Alliance has done this to more than just him.
Yeah.
The Alliance
Oh,
is no longer
gosh.
just his enemy. It's the world's enemy.
Oh,
That's
I
And
really
they
sad.
hurt everybody.
Yeah, I think
And he
this-
now is stepping up, and the crew is his world to protect.
There's a really important distinction here, too, between the kind of threats that we faced in the show, the Alliance threats that we faced in the show, which were all the Alliance military. We were dealing with, this military organization that was hunting the independents. But the Operative works for the Parliament. He works for the civil authority.
Yeah.
So this is now an even clearer case of civilization itself gunning for Mal and gunning for all the browncoats, for all the survivors
Wow.
of the Independence War. Yeah.
And while Mal is resolved, everyone starts questioning him all at once. And he pulls his gun, which is a really intense moment.
Yup.
He says, "This is how it is. Anybody doesn't want to fly with me anymore, this is your port of harbor. There's a lot of fine ways to die. I ain't waiting for the Alliance to choose mine." A man comes out of the vessel that Book had shot down, hands up in surrender, and Mal walks over and shoots and kills him without hesitation.
I did not know that his hands were up in surrender.
Yep, he throws his hands up like this, like, "Don't shoot." And Mal's like, "Nope. You killed a whole village of innocent people.
Oh, wow. I didn't
Your
realize
judgment
that.
has come."
I mean, like, I was totally fine with Mal killing him. I'm like, oh, that's a bad guy. Yes, he deserves to die. But
Right.
I didn't realize that you get that extra little bit there. 'Cause just, man, whew.
Yeah. In the original script here, there's one difference. I don't know if we want to beep this out or not, but I'll let editing handle that. I'm going to read the original script, and the one difference is just the word that may or may not be beeped out. "I mean to confound those killers and take my shot at getting to Miranda, maybe finding out what I'm dying for. That's my theme now. So I hear a word out of any of you that ain't helping me or taking your leave, I will shoot you."
Damn.
Whoa!
He just says, "I will shoot you" in the what we get, but in the script it was
I think
even that much more powerful.
I think I like dropping it. Yeah, because it's a little too.
It's a
little too
It's a
intense,
little too
yeah.
Too
aggressive
intense.
toward the crew, maybe.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. When it's not,
Yes.
they're not.
Which,
Yeah.
I think they obviously made the right decision.
That was a
there.
good decision.
Yeah.
That he's not upset at the crew. He's
Right.
just stern and knows what has to be done.
Right.
He's doing the captainly thing where
He
you
is.
have to kind of be slightly the bad guy at sometimes because you get your crew to do things that they don't want to do because
Right,
it's what they have
exactly.
to do, and you have to be the one to make that sacrifice to be the one that they're upset at because it has to be done.
Well,
Right.
I'm sure he's got guilt too because of that line that we had from Zoe there in the beginning about heroes just somebody who gets other people killed.
Yeah.
And now here he's got
Yeah.
everyone he ever knew.
So we cut to Serenity flying through with a full Reaver overhaul.
Yeah. Oof.
Which it is painful to see, right?
It is.
It
hurts
is.
to see
It
this.
is.
Yeah, that's
It
our
looks-
girl. That's
Reaver ship.
Serenity. It's our home.
The graphics are great. The
Yeah.
visuals are I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
like this
yeah.
is very. It's yeah. It is painful to see. It is disquieting to see. But I mean, like they did
Good
a
word.
great job.
Yeah.
Mal solemnly wanders the ship, pausing in emotional exhaustion. The crew gathers as screams and grunts of torment come over the radio. A tense scene as they make their way slowly and just barely unnoticed through a field of Reavers.
That's the worst like shortwave radio ever. Like no wonder they turned that. I mean, like everybody's just got like, you know, their old little hammies on and just shrieking eternally into it. Ugh.
You're listening to KRVR Reaver Radio.
Next up, an hour and a half of tormented screaming.
Good night,
Is
Night
it just
Vale.
Night Vale?
Good night.
These are the after shows after Night Vale.
Right. You get Welcome to Night Vale and then Reaver Space Radio.
This is another one of those moments when, as science fiction, Firefly perhaps doesn't work as well as it should.
Sure.
Space, and I don't know if you guys know this, is infinite in all directions. How many Reavers are there? Because I'm guessing it's not infinity Reavers. They could just fly around. Do we think the Reavers are completely encompassing the planet of Miranda?
I think that they are actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
so
Because they came from
They
Miranda.
came from Miranda, so
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
that ends up sort of being. I mean, like they feel like they can't. Maybe they can't go back to that planet. But this is their home base of operations.
Right.
This is their like birthing.
This is the
ground.
Death Star.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
Sure.
just
Absolutely.
float around the planet, and every once in a while send a few out. They get
Yeah.
lost in space, go attack planets.
Right.
To go ravage the other colonies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then bring back more Reavers, bring back
Yeah.
more stuff, bring back more food, and then keep going up. This is nothing to do with the movie at all, but it reminded me we were sitting here talking about like all these radio waves. This show was almost called Radio Free Firefly.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, I kinda like that too.
Our show, our
Oh,
podcast.
yes. That's right. I remember
Not
that now.
the TV
yeah, I
show.
was like, that doesn't make any sense. But now I remember this. Okay.
And then we changed it to Mighty Fine Shindig.
Yep.
It's a good name.
Thanks.
The visual effects supervisor talked about making a Reaver ship and what he wanted them to look like, and he described them as muscle cars that look like Leatherface.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
good
said
job. Mission
each one
accomplished.
represents
guy.
a mask that the Reavers wear.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. They're also it's a little bit reminiscent of like some of the vehicles we see in Mad Max.
I was thinking Fury Road. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
also a little, and this I think is one of my problems with the chase sequence on the planet at the beginning. It's a little reminiscent of the smokers in Waterworld, where it's just this horrible
yeah.
gas
Yeah.
spewing. You know, it's a little simplistic, but you're right. Fury Road is a
Yeah.
much better reference point.
Right, sure. Yes.
We get a small cut to the operative talking to an alliance man saying, out of frustration, Define disappeared.
Right. Uh-huh.
It's not where Firefly's gone because it's now a Reaver ship in the midst of Reavers.
Yeah.
Readings seem to show that there isn't anything inhabitable about this planet. They fly over at least a dozen cities and realize that this wasn't a small settlement at all. They land on Miranda and see an area similar to the one in River's Dreams. I love the way everything looks in this scene, and Whedon had said that the way they shot everything here was a certain technique that brightens everything up, lets you see a lot more detail, especially when it spins. You'll notice when it spins, everything's not blurry. You can clearly see everything as the
Oh,
camera
that's
spins.
so
Right,
cool.
you
It
talked to us
hurts
about
the
this.
eyes.
And yes, he
some of
said
these
specifically
scenes.
that.
Yes.
That was one of his points, is that
Yes,
it
and I
almost
thought-
hurts to watch after
Yeah,
that.
I certainly, yeah. I'm glad that is true because I intuited. I was like, he is doing this on purpose. This hurts to look
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
So they find decayed bodies lying around with no noticeable cause of death. River hears a Reaver sound but turns around and nothing's there. Kaylee is startled by a body inside a window behind her. It's not nearly as decayed because the inside was hermetically sealed. They realize no one fell. They just laid down. No sign of pain or struggle. River gets visions of every city being filled with these bodies. She hears them all saying nothing. In Chinese, she says, "Merciful God, please take me away." And in English, says, "Please God, make me a stone."
Which is my favorite River line we ever get ever. Gosh,
Yeah?
I love that line. Yeah, it shows so much. What we had talked about in Ariel, that she feels everything, and her extreme compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That one even more so when she told Simon, put a bullet in me. But yeah, to make me a stone, just, oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
They find the beacon that drew them to this location in a beat-up ship. Which Whedon mentioned that he really regrets this and they should have gone back in and done something, but there's no like streak marks or destruction behind the ship showing that like came to a crash landing. It's just
like
there.
Just crashed there.
Like it never touched the ground before it.
That's funny.
Activating a message inside, a woman explains that there was no war.
Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
Sarah Paulson, you know, the teacher from Matilda, just popping into Shindig.
And she explains that the environment was fine, that everything was fine here. But they used something called the Pax in the air to calm people, to weed out aggression.
Pax, just real quick, is a word for peace.
It is.
Yep. Is it Latin?
Latin.
It is.
Latin word for peace?
Latin for peace.
Nailed
Also,
it.
it's interesting to notice that on this lady over her right breast are the letters CMB, which stand for Combat Medic Badge. And so it's showing that she was like sent there by the Alliance to like clean up, like you have to go help people. There's something going on down there. And she's like reporting from that as having been like a soldier down there as an army medic treating casualties. And she says that
this is a lovely performance.
Yeah,
she
so
does. She
good,
is beautiful.
so
Sarah
good.
Paulson is amazing
Sarah
in
Paulson.
every single thing I have
Every
ever
single
seen
thing.
her in.
Yep.
If you haven't seen Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, which is another Elizabeth Olsen movie that I'm just referencing all over the place today.
Yeah.
I do what I want. She's in that and she's stunning. Absolutely
Wow.
amazing. Totally fantastic. She's great. I was very happily surprised to see her.
She informs them that this Pax worked too well. It weeded out aggression, but it also stopped them from wanting to do anything else. They just ended up laying down and dying, not caring. 10% of the population, however, had the opposite reaction. Aggression increased beyond madness. The crew realizes, from what she is saying, that these are the original Reavers. The Alliance made them. The woman in the message is killed by Reavers at the end.
Yeah.
The crew is emotionally distraught. Rivers throws up, but repeats with clarity, "I'm all right," finally seemingly to have gotten a clear head. Mal lets everyone know that this message has been hidden for 12 years, and this is what they were afraid River knew.
So this was either like during the war or before the war at all, depending on how long the war itself lasted.
Right.
Right.
Man. Yeah, you really screwed the pooch on this one, Alliance.
Yeah.
Good
Independents
job.
were fighting the good fight.
Mal is determined to show the universe, saying someone has to speak for these people.
Right.
And this is where we get this great impassioned speech here. You all got on this boat for different reasons, but you all come to the same place. So now I'm asking you more than I ever have before. Maybe all, because as sure as I know anything, I know this. They will try again. Maybe on another world, maybe on this very ground, swept clean. A year from now, 10, they'll swing back to this belief that they can make people better. And I do not hold to that. So no more running. I aim to misbehave. There's another line. Swear it was in the show.
Would have bet
$100.
$100. Yeah.
Did y'all read? I think I've asked you guys this a million times. The answer is always no. But Aldous Huxley, Brave New World.
Nope.
So, okay.
I love
yes.
it. It's
all right.
so much better than
Fantastic.
1984 in my mind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
High five. Yes. Absolutely. Anyway, yeah, the Soma rations is what this reminds me of a lot. Yeah. And just this idea of keeping people docile. And she says we did it to keep people safe.
But they
I don't
mean
think
safe by weeding out by basically erasing these characteristics that whoever was in charge, the Alliance or whatever
Right.
like group of scientists or whoever deemed unworthy.
They meddle.
Yeah.
They are meddlesome.
Yes.
It's an interesting kind of counterpoint, though, to the frontier story that's happening with Mal and this subaltern culture, I guess, that Mal is a part of. It's interesting to see this tension between behaving and misbehaving. I love the way that that's codified. That if we stop fighting, the conflict itself is healthy and beneficial, that it can be a positive force, that we are
Absolutely.
made better by it. And in the absence of conflict, we lay down and we die. It's one of the more sophisticated takes on like political philosophy, I think, that you're going to get from Whedon in his entire corpus.
Sure.
I don't think that he looks at this subject in quite such a thoughtful way anywhere else in his body of work, or at least hasn't to date.
It's a great question on what it means to be human and to be alive.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's also, I think, a really interesting point on like how much does the government in power get to be in power and get to control people and people groups and
of course.
things like that. And it was just oddly prescient for today's times.
Yeah.
Whenever River seems suddenly to be as lucid as we have ever seen her ever, did that work for you guys? This whole idea that like the reason why River was so moon-brained was because she had this secret about Miranda in her head that she didn't realize she had.
Oh, yeah,
And
sure.
that was what was affecting her.
release
And
of
like
it.
even from, you know, planets and planets away, she's hearing these screams and it's affecting her and affecting...
Yeah.
Like
intellectually, it works for me. It doesn't work so well emotionally, and put a pin in this because this is going to be a recurring point over the course of the last 20% of our discussion. I suppose. Because we don't see the consequence, it effectively doesn't matter. Because we don't get to see that much of River after the fact. We don't get to see how this, I don't know, epiphany changes her. how
right,
she
we've
is
swung back over to
transformed by
Mal's
this.
part of the story.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
And
I don't know
because
if
of
I would
that,
agree with that,
Really?
though. Yeah, well, just because when she does, and of course we're not quite there yet, but when she does decide to go out of that room and to fight the fight, she's doing that for Simon, and it's not part of what she's been engineered to do. It's a conscious choice that she is
Sure,
making, lucid
sure.
in the moment. And then, of course, when we get her on the ship and when she becomes
yeah, but she's
piloting
still
and part of the crew,
kind
no,
of
you-
rivery. I'm thinking of that last
True,
scene too.
a little bit.
And she's more lucid than she is. But again, we just keep talking about Objects in Space. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that beat at the end of Objects in Space, where she has that moment of connection with Mal. It feels very similar. And I think that perhaps because it's Mal specifically with whom she has that
Oh.
kind of paternal relationship
Of course,
almost.
sure.
I would love to have just, if I had an extra scene of her with the crew, of her being emotionally available to Kaylee. We just spent how many episodes
or just sitting
building
down
this
at dinner with
relationship?
everybody.
Yeah,
Sure, I see
so
that.
it works. There's nothing wrong with it, I think.
Sure.
But because it doesn't motivate anything directly, I'm left feeling a little hollow.
Well, and I wonder
by
even
it.
if I'm looking a little too much into it, like I wonder if that's not quite. I wonder if she's okay now in the way that she
This
previously.
is what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
I never read it that she was okay for good.
Oh, okay.
Because immediately after
Her
after the ship-
amygdala is still stripped.
Yes.
Sure.
And after the ship
true.
does crash here in a moment that we're going to get to, she goes back to that place of having too many reavers in her head. She's freaking out again.
That's
I think
right.
just in the moment, she had a release. She had her weight lifted off her shoulders.
That
but
makes
she's
sense.
not better necessarily.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I buy that.
I like that a lot more. Yeah. Yeah.
I do like here that Jane responds with this awesome line, but I'm going to read what happens in the original script first because I think it's awful, and I'm really glad they changed it. I need everyone to know how awful it was originally. Where Jane says to Mal after giving this impassioned speech, "My grandma always told me, if you can't do something smart, do something right." And then Mal says, "That the same grandma told you that there was an evil dwarf spirit living in your well?" And Jane says, "She was a fun grandma." Weird place for a joke, guys.
That is a weird place
Not
for a
okay.
weird
It's
joke.
like-
Little
Not
Man
even
Loved
a fun
Fire.
joke.
Yeah, changing
It's the
everything.
same.
It's what now?
Little Man Loved Fire. It's the
Oh
same as
yeah,
the midget
and
arsonist.
he loved it so much.
Yes.
Why? Why though?
But
But-
the change.
They fixed
Yeah.
it because they had
Yes,
Jane instead
yes.
say, "Shepherd Book used to tell me."
Which is
Yeah.
perfect because we
Absolutely
loved the
perfect.
relationship that Jane and Book
they
were
built a
developing.
relationship in the show.
did.
They were buddies for
Yeah.
sure. And Book here just died, and Jane's bringing up like, man, I am even more resolved in this because this is something that I know from that man that he taught me.
Sure.
And
Right.
I'm going to do this for him.
Infinitely
Right.
better. Yes.
And not just that Jane is thinking about Book and has been thinking about
Sure.
Book, that he was listening. That
Yeah.
whole
Right. Well, and especially I just
being
remembered
changed.
in the message, it's Jane and Book who are specifically having these conversations
Yes.
about death and about
Yes.
what you do in the face of death. And
Absolutely.
now the man that he was talking to,
That's
his friend he had his
right.
conversation with, is now dead.
Great
And
point.
what did he
Yeah.
say about wanting to live more and live harder when he
Yeah.
saw death? So absolutely running
Yeah.
into a battle would be
That's right.
the thing that he would want to do. Yeah.
I do love Jane, the big stupid oaf.
So Mal's plan is to use Mr. Universe's equipment to broadcast a message to every screen in 30 worlds. The crew brings up the fact that they have all the Reavers and the Alliance between where they are and where Mr. Universe is, and the Alliance knows about Mr. Universe. Zoe says it's a fair bet that they will see them coming, and Mal says no, they're not going to see this coming.
Oh, man.
Very mysterious.
Yeah. The crew contacts Mr. Universe while leaving, saying that what they have for him. He agrees that he will do what they want, and that he will then tell them if anybody shows up first. Then the camera pans out with this great Whedon cut. As he's agreeing to let them know that if anyone else arrives, we see that the room is full of Alliance soldiers,
Yes.
just slightly off camera from Serenity's viewpoint. As Mr. Universe disconnects, asking for the money that the Operative owes him there, I think he says 30 pieces of silver or something like that, another allusion to
Another-
betrayal, Judas' betrayal there. The operative stabs him with his sword and orders all the tech be destroyed.
As that was the right thing to do when you're the villain.
When you're
That's
the villain.
absolutely
Yeah.
the correct thing that you do.
Yeah. But we see that there's no fancy speech here. There's no talking of honor. There's no anything. He just stabs him. I think he's angered.
Oh, you think he's mad
I
now,
think he's
finally?
a little mad.
I've
He's
been
getting a little
thinking about
upset.
that too. The problem is that by the time we hit Miranda, we're kind of nervously looking at the clock and thinking that we have a lot of plot left to cover.
Yes.
And the pace of the story starts to accelerate in a way that
Yes.
it doesn't feel entirely purposeful. It doesn't feel entirely within the control of Whedon as director. It feels as though we're just burning plot now. And we're not necessarily spending the time that we would have spent in the first 2/3 of the story on these pivotal beats. I would have loved a moment with the Operator and Mr. Universe.
Yeah.
Particularly because I feel like Mr. Universe, as much as I love David Krumholtz, I feel like he's a little underdeveloped.
Yes.
Oh,
This would have been a
absolutely
great
he is, yeah.
opportunity to land his place in the fiction here. Like, what does he represent? Who is this guy?
Right, because it seems like he seems almost chaotic neutral, where he's just, he does have
Sure.
that line about, the 30 pieces of silver or whatever, but it's, if nobody can really stop the signal, Mr. Universe, then I don't know. Like, it would have been interesting to like really see like what is this guy really about, because he did seem a little bit off the first time we saw him, where it's like, you're not quite sure where he stands or like what does he believe?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
this
exactly.
whole film is about like, belief.
Yeah, why
and
is
what
he
does
out
it
there
look like?
doing this thing?
Yeah, why is he out there doing that? Does he believe that information should be free? Because
He seems to.
yeah, and I mean, is he Napster? Is that the thing?
I miss Napster.
Oh, he's part of the continuation of
Baby, do you not know about BitTorrents? I'll teach you later.
he's part of the hacker group in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the beginning of the Sky.
He's Rising Tide.
He
part
is
of
the
the Rising Tide.
rising tide.
He's all that's left of the Rising Tide.
He is the tide. The tide rose, and it brought forth Mr. Universe. Which certainly sounds like a dumb hacker name from the MCU, so I buy it.
does.
Yeah.
Great
it
nickname.
does.
Yeah. We
Serenity,
built such a rich fiction here. I'm sorry. Like all the superheroes destroyed the planet, and we all took our Stark Tech spaceships and left, and just tried again.
That's why the mule levitates.
Yeah,
That's Stark Tech repulsors, right?
yeah.
Great.
It's Lola repurposed. God, I bet there are people out there who are like, I'm just not that big of a fan of the MCU. I wish they would shut up and just start talking
well,
about
you're
this
going to be
movie.
real upset when we continue talking about the MCU on our next podcast. Serenity makes its way through the Reavers again, but this time, last minute, they attack the Reavers and run. Interesting, though, that the gun mounted on Serenity that they put up there and then attack with is Betty from Alien Resurrection, written by Joss Whedon, the Alien movie he did.
Wow.
What? I don't remember a damn thing about
Oh,
Alien
I don't
Resurrection.
either.
Okay,
And don't
we're
go
moving
back
on,
and find
moving
out.
on. Doesn't matter. Not that great. Sigourney Weaver, National Treasure. Moving on.
What do we think about arming Serenity? Because we take
Hate.
pains right at the end of the movie to remove the cannon
Yes,
from
yeah.
Serenity, because that's not what we are now. I mean,
Right.
we're going back to this life of roguish misbehavior.
Right. Well, it's part of the disguise, right? Like we have to make her look like this deadly, like
right, sure.
like messed up thing.
Yeah, because I think you can actually spot that the cannon's there when they go through Reaver territory the first time.
Yeah,
They
no,
put
absolutely,
on the
because it
ship.
looks like that they've got like it looks like they have a corpse up there on the gun. But yeah, I mean, it totally works for me, and I love the payoff there that it's not just here's our hood ornament. It's like no, we're actually gonna do a thing with this, and I love that, and I think that it's utterly brilliant. And yeah, I really enjoy the back end of this movie when everything just gets so quick. I love all of it.
We now see that the Alliance army waits on the other side of the cloud storm on Mr. Universe's planet. Serenity comes through straight at them, and the Operative laughs at how they aren't even changing course.
This part was so
It was amazing.
good.
It was amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And
lots of
even
fun.
Whedon mentions here that the storm it's a little out there, and of course it's a little forced.
Sure.
But he wanted a moment for the cavalry to be on one side,
was,
and then
yeah.
the
That's
natives
exactly
to come
what it
over the
is.
hill.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
exact-
This is referencing a movie or a trope, even, but my knowledge of westerns is not perhaps as sophisticated and full as it should be.
Well,
but I've
education.
definitely seen this, where we have the fort armed with
Yes.
the soldiers,
Right,
and
yeah.
the rebels come out.
Yeah,
with,
and you see like the 6 little horses, and it's
Exactly
like, what
right.
do they even do? And then suddenly, here are the Riders of Rohan.
Over
All of the Reaver ships that were surrounding this planet come pouring through the clouds behind
Great
Serenity.
effect.
Great
Ju-
effect.
like,
It's
you don't
great
realize
effect.
you don't
Yeah.
realize when Serenity's flying through how big and how many of these ships there are. But
Yes.
when the Alliance is their whole army, because obviously they've decided that this is a big
That
threat.
this is going down.
Right. Yeah, the Operative might be a little
Yeah.
angry. I think you might be onto something there, Vin.
But those Reavers, those ships are just as big.
They're huge.
They are warships.
Yeah. Are there any fun little, I mean, like, is there an R2-D2 flying about in here or
No, I don't
anything
think
that we
there's
know
any fun
about?
Easter eggs like that. There
nerd.
really should have been.
There probably should have been.
Do we think that the Reaver ships are the ships that were dispatched to Miranda to investigate in the
Yes.
first place? Is this
Oh, they have to
Paulson
be, right?
came from
Especially
one
that,
of
like,
the ships?
huge
That's
giant
awesome.
one.
Yeah.
That's got to be
Yeah.
the medical
Yeah.
one, right?
Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, in a sense, the Alliance's hubris coming back.
Oh
to
my
destroy-
gosh!
Well, this is exactly what Mal is about to say. He's about to
so
say,
good.
chickens come home to roost.
There you go.
Yeah.
The proverb obviously means that you have to face the consequences of your mistakes or misdeeds.
Oh,
Wow.
that is so good. Yep, I like that.
Oh,
very
you
much.
boys are so
and they
smart.
created that. Oh, they did.
Yep.
They created their own destruction. I like that.
Oh, dip. And then I love when we cut to the Operative and he's,
he's
like,
losing his
fire,
cool.
Panicking.
fire,
He's like,
fire.
Fire at the
Someone
Reavers! At the
fire!
Reavers! Somebody shoot the Reavers! Forget that little ship!
Yeah.
Please shoot the Reavers!
Yep, he is losing
It's
his
so
cool.
Part of the
good.
Reavers.
It pleases me to watch.
Yes.
And I love
No, it really is
little
really nice.
tiny Serenity just like weaving
Yeah,
and bobbing
yeah.
and flying through all this
Bye,
battle.
y'all.
And Wash, of course, having a little bit of a hard time. You know, he's having to center himself in danger. Here we get that Wash again, who in the midst of danger and chaos is centering himself. And he's calm,
Yes.
cool, collected pilot saying, I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar. Mal looks
We all
out
know
about
what
and
that
says,
means now, though.
Shivers, right?
Right,
Everyone? Shivers.
yeah.
I am a leaf on the wind.
Yeah.
if you know what's coming, especially.
Yeah, I'm not ready.
Mal says chickens come home to roost, and then Wash again, as they swerve through ships, says, I'm a leaf on the wind. And Mal goes, what does that mean? We see the Operative narrowly escape his giant war vessel in an escape pod as the war vessel goes down. A few narrow misses and some rough flying later, Serenity gets close to planetside, but is hit by an EMP from a Reaver. Simon pulls Kaylee to safety as the crew straps in, and the ship spirals out of control.
I love this scene. I love seeing. I especially love whenever Jane is running through and checking everybody in like the dining lounge area or whatever.
Jane
like
is taking the time to check on everything.
yeah, like that's his job. His job is to check and make sure everybody's belts are secure. And
Wow.
like it is
I
so
love that.
he ends up like getting thrown off to the side at
Yeah,
one
he-
point.
He, never even gets buckled
Yeah,
in.
he doesn't
Yeah.
get buckled in, but it's
I
so
missed that
great
beat.
because
That's
I think
wonderful.
right before that we even hear Mal yell at Jane, and Jane just like boom shoots off to go make sure
Yeah.
that everybody else is taken care of.
And I think it's especially poignant that the people he checks on, River, Kaylee, and Nara.
Yeah.
And it's like River.
Oh.
He checked on River to make sure she's safe and buckled in. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really
The crew
it's really great.
is united in
Yes.
this
Yes.
thing that they're doing.
Yes.
Wash regains control of the ship last minute, but the backups are barely functioning. Wash says he has to glide Serenity into the runway for a rough landing. The ship slides down the runway, getting all smashed up, finally coming to a stop, but in shambles. Wash says triumphantly, I am a leaf in the wind. Watch how I... And a spear shoots through into his chest.
And then Joss Whedon just decides, you know, screw you, audience.
Yeah.
Killing your favorites. What I
Killing your
do.
favorites.
Yeah.
You knew it was a funny guy in a Joss Whedon production. What were you expecting? You knew better.
Whedon did say that his reasoning behind this was that a death would provide the weight for the danger they're in. That from this point on, every time somebody gets shot or anything, you think, well, they could die.
Yeah.
That's
They
true.
could
I mean,
now
we
die.
have lost Book,
Except,
and then we
yeah,
see that
we already
Simon-
thought that was the case
I was
because
gonna
you
say
just
we
killed
lost
Book.
That's
though.
true, but
Yeah,
Book
I
was
don't think
barely
we need
in
to
the
lose both
movie.
of them.
That's, and also
Wash
he was
has been a
barely in
more
the
main
back half of the
character.
show.
Yeah.
That is
And
true.
also it was revealed...
He should have been,
that-
though. I really like Book.
Yeah. It was also revealed to me while reading through stuff on the internet that Alan Tudyk and Ron Glass were both not committed to sequels. And so they killed both of them so that they wouldn't have to keep bringing them back if they were to do more sequels.
Well, that's just practical,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know how much I buy Whedon's explanations. He does things because he can. He does things
No,
because he wants to
absolutely,
have
yes.
this kind of emotional effect. And I'm not sure. Before we get to Wash, though, I just want to talk about Serenity. I want to talk about the destruction
How
of Serenity.
hard it is to watch.
You
Like, you
guys-
see in the engine getting ripped off and just like the...
Yeah.
It's so...
I am a huge Star Trek fan and have been for my entire life. And I went to the movie theater the day that Generations was released. And at the end of Generations, I guess minor spoilers for a movie that is, a depressing number of years old at this point, the Enterprise crashes. The saucer section of the Enterprise D, which
Yes.
was my Enterprise. That felt like home in a way that no fictional place ever has.
Oh,
it crashes. And it broke my heart. Losing Serenity is so much worse. It's so much harder.
I could not remember. Again, it has been so long since I'd seen this movie. I didn't remember how this movie ended. I was like,
Yeah.
did we just buy a new Firefly? What are we doing? Her wing, her engine. What is? She's broken.
Shambles.
Shambles.
Yeah.
This is, for me, the explanation for Wash. It's not that Wash as a character has died because he's outlived his usefulness, or because we want to motivate some change in Zoe, or because we want to demonstrate that there is a real threat here against the crew. It's that in this moment, Wash and Serenity are one and the same. That they are. That Serenity has died and Wash has died, and that's it. This is the sacrifice that our 10th character, that our home gave, so that our crew could survive. And I'm looking back through the series and thinking of moments where, because there are moments where Wash is synonymous with Serenity, and there are moments when Kaylee is synonymous with Serenity. And if one of them had to die...
I was going to say.
I was going to say that too. I'm glad. I wouldn't have been able to handle losing Kaylee, and frankly, I don't think anyone else on the crew would have been able to handle that either.
They would have just lied down.
They would have, they would have lied down.
I would have lain down. That would have been it. We would be done.
Like, it would have
We'd
been
be
roll
podcasting
credits.
from the
It's
floor.
like Kaylee's dead, and it's like, and that's the end because nothing good happened after that ever.
Now we tell no more stories. that
we're
was
done.
the end of pop culture. Thanks, Joss Whedon.
Mustaches or no?
Oh, Lord.
So how do you guys feel about Wash's death? I mentioned earlier that there are things which perhaps could have more impact if we saw the repercussions of those events. And for me, one of the great criticisms of Wash's death is simply that it doesn't matter. It doesn't carry any weight because we don't get to see the consequence.
Right.
Does that feel true to you? Does it work for you in the moment? How do you feel?
I feel like we do get to see some consequences. Zoe changes her personality a bit. She loses it.
Oh, man.
She fights the Reavers here in a moment, like in an unsafe way because she's just too lost in the moment. And we have a few conversation pieces that come up, making sure she's okay in that.
Right.
She immediately just switches to soldier mode to deal with the grief.
Yeah.
I'm most moved when she first runs over to him and
Yeah,
is saying,
it's
"Baby, we
heartbreaking.
gotta go. We gotta go." That was
And she keeps repeating, baby.
Yes, that was
Every time,
incredibly
it's like a
difficult
knife
to
to my
watch.
heart.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is really the part that got me was whenever they are all leaving the ship and they're in like that hangar area or whatever, and Kaylee whips around and she goes, wait, where's Wash?
Oh, yes.
And Zoe's just like, he ain't coming. And it's just
Right.
like, shit.
Yes.
Shit, though. Yeah.
Liz, you've had your problems with Zoe and Wash through the season. How does this work for you? I mean, are you convinced? Are you moved?
Are you glad he's dead?
By their unity here at the end?
No, again, I think that this was such a well unified production in general. This movie, it was much more consistent. The characterization was. I loved Wash and Zoe from start to finish in this movie, so I can forgive those things from those other episodes, especially since we've talked through them and we've kind of realized, okay, writer problems over here, and now that we've gotten to a place where I've come to like them in at least a couple of episodes where I liked them start to finish.
Yeah.
And here they are at their very best. I'm absolutely moved by this. And gosh, and at the end when we get Zoe in that dress and
That incredible dress.
unnecessarily beautiful dress.
I don't want to
is
say that it was
just-
worth losing Wash to get that dress.
It's
It's
pretty
almost
awesome.
worth losing Wash to get that dress.
really astonishing. Oh,
I don't mean
gosh.
that.
And
Don't tweet me, you
Zoe-
guys. This is how I cope with grief. That's all.
Well, and I do like seeing Zoe cope with grief because she feels it right there in the moment. And I love that she accesses those emotions. She doesn't immediately shut down and immediately say, we have to go, we have to get out of here. She does run to him first. And then, she has to.
Mal's got to throw her
buckle
down
in.
to avoid from getting her killed also.
Yes.
Because more spears come pouring in.
Right.
Yeah, I really love your observation, Vinton, that in that moment she becomes the soldier again. That
Yes.
she loses that domestic side that had been balancing her. She loses her life and switches back to her work. That's really powerful.
Yes.
And I will point out that Whedon has mentioned in multiple interviews that there's a strong possibility that if they were able to continue the show, do another sequel, do anything, that Wash and Book would return. And he indicated that he had plans for finding a way to bring them back, but also mentioned that it would have to be done in a way that the audience would buy, for sure.
Life model decoys.
Life model decoys. Yeah, the robot from
we
Mr.
figured it
Universe.
out.
Yeah,
Yep.
Mr. Universe's robo-girlfriend. Perfect.
Yep.
So as Sarah mentioned, Mal pulls Zoe down to miss more spears shooting in. The rest of the crew runs out of the ship, fully armed, going into Mr. Universe's building. They find a bottleneck spot to make their stand and set up crates for defense. And there are blast doors to fall back into if it gets to be too much. Zoe says that they will stay and buy time for Mal to go further in with the data to send out. Kaylee asks where Wash is, and Zoe says he ain't coming, like Sarah said. And the crew has no time to mourn.
It's true.
As they hear the Reavers coming, Mal says to Jane, "Tell me you brought them this time."
Yep.
And Jane shows them the grenades.
Yay,
and they
freebie.
each toss one down the hall
which is a great one. Yep. Really well
at the
done.
incoming Reavers and then shut the door.
Yeah.
Mal asks Zoe, "Are you here?" And she replies, "Do the job, sir." She's in that soldier mode, like I mentioned right there.
Yes.
Is where you get that clear notice of that.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hold till I get back," and goes into the building to send the data. And then that's when we get Jane talking to Zoe saying, "Captain's right, we can't be thinking of revenge if we're going to get out of this." And Zoe's like, "You really think any of us are going to get through this?" And Jane looks around and goes, "I might."
This is a last stand, and I really
Yeah.
like how this is set up.
This is
I
a
mean,
terrible
there is-
place for a last stand.
Yeah, and there is no way out. The odds are not in favor
No,
of our
not
little
at
game.
all.
They
No.
are really not. Yeah,
Would you
this
say they're
felt-
1,000,000 to 1?
I guess I would. Yeah, no, this is awful. This is
Never
dark.
tell me the odds, kid.
So Mal here is being motivated by belief. That's his arc through the entire movie. What is his belief in right now? Because he's making this last stand to disseminate the truth. He's making this
Right.
last stand to strike against the Alliance, not militarily, but culturally. He's using the weapon of evil empires. He's using their reliance on propaganda and secrecy against them. To what is Mal dedicated right now? What does he believe in?
I mean, I would say it's his like libertarian side. It's individuality, individualism, and the right of people, or I would even say persons, the right of persons to decide what is best for themselves, to not be governed in a way that is so, we talked about that paternal governance that people do, and knowing what is best. And we wanted to make people safer, making people better, and to give them the opportunity to have all of the answers before they submit themselves to a form of government that they see as inevitable. And he doesn't anymore. Or never did, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of how I feel. I mean, he is going to say that people have a right to hear this. People need to hear this. People died because of what they did. And I feel like it is a continuation of him from the war going, finally, I can show people what we were fighting for.
Right.
In the beginning, you have the student asking, why would they fight
Why
you?
would they
So
even-
they're showing you all they
yeah.
don't even know.
Good,
Why would they
yeah.
fight
That's
the
a great
Alliance?
point.
And Mal is like, I will show you why we
Yeah.
fought. And I will show you why we died.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
real good. Yeah.
Might have been the losing side. Still not convinced it was the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great line.
Mal enters Mr. Universe's room to see all that his gear was smashed. Mr. Universe lying in the arms of his love bot. But in his dying breath, he recorded a message that the bot speaks, telling Mal there's a backup system. A bit hard to get to, but it will work, saying they can't stop the signal. And I really like that he says, "Guy stabbed me with a sword, Mal. How weird is that?"
It's so good. And Whedon's mastery of dialogue here, that even when it's placed into the mouth of another character, you know that
You
that's Mr.
still
Universe.
can
Yeah.
absolutely
That
hear him
pattern is
talking.
so
That man
I
is
hear it in my
words,
head as
yeah.
I'm talking about it as David Krumholtz. It's hard to remember that it was
Yeah.
the love bot who spoke
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Lenore the Love Bot.
Lenore the love bot. And other stories.
Weirdest children's book.
Yeah.
She just really liked hugs.
Special hugs.
Special hugs.
Okay.
The Reavers start to break down the door back with the crew, and River can't keep their mad thoughts out of her head. Kaylee and Simon share a really awesome moment where Kaylee says, "I didn't plan on going out like this. I think we did right, but..." And Simon says, "I never planned anything. I just wanted to keep River safe. Spent so much time on Serenity, ignoring anything that I wanted for myself." And here is where part of the original script I'm really upset that they took out. Originally, there was this bit of dialogue that they cut where he says, "Spent so much time on Serenity trying to find us a home, I never realized I already had."
Oh, they should have left that.
Why did they leave that?
That's okay because Kaylee's line is really, really great.
Well, then it
mean
did continue
sex?
in the original script.
No, not
to the
that
next part. But where he said, "My one regret in all this is never being with you." And Kaylee says, "With me? You mean to say is sex?"
I hate that
"I
line.
mean
I don't
to
like
say."
that line either. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weirdly constructed line. But then, like,
I do like-
I love whenever Simon responds with, "I mean to say," and then Kaylee's like, "Hell with this, I'm gonna live."
Yes, absolutely. Aiming at the door, ready to kill anyone who steps
That's
in.
right. God, let nothing come between Kaylee and her sex, I guess.
Yeah. The Operative drops into Mr. Universe's room just after Mal has left, hearing the Lovebot's message as well.
Why did he go back to that room?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just looking for a safe spot, trying to find out where they were going.
Cool, groovy.
Yeah.
Did it? You know what? He's got like
I guess he must have assumed that Mal is coming to try to finish
owns
the
a guy
job.
with a handy cam following Mal around everywhere, and so he saw on the footage that he popped back into that room.
Serenity is a found footage movie?
Yes. Isn't that weird? How weird is that?
So weird that they never mentioned that.
Does that seem right to you?
Boom.
Also, when we cut back to the crew, you'll notice Inara is holding this giant bolt thrower of a weapon, which is digitally added in because originally she was just holding a bow and arrow, just a plain old bow and arrow.
Just a regular
not
old
special
bow and
at all.
arrow.
And apparently that didn't work with test audiences at all. I don't know what they did, if they booed at this moment or what, but that didn't work. So they digitally went in and recreated it to be this bigger gun of a weapon.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I guess there are scenes, I think I couldn't see them, but Joss mentioned there were scenes where she's in the background and they had to change the color of the bow so it faded into the background and they had to erase the line because it was over her face.
That's really cool. I like her weird super bowcaster crossbow
I like it too,
thingy.
and her crazy Amazon warrior queen outfit that she's wearing. Inara totally
You're
works.
right. How
for me
did
right
I
here.
forget
love her.
this? Who knows?
How?
I think it's pretty great, but I also would have thought it was just as cool if she was using a bow, I guess. I don't know.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
No?
Yeah, I mean, like, we're in the future. They have lasers. What are you doing with a bow
everyone's
and
got
arrow?
grenades
Also,
and laser
all the
guns.
Reavers are wearing, like, scary Mad Max Fury Road leather armor. Like,
That's true. Yeah, maybe. Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
Now the Reavers do break through the door and the crew starts shooting. Cutting back to Mal reaching the equipment. Before him is a railing, and he can look down and see a generator shaft. It's deep, and machines are rotating, grinding. There's arcs of electricity ricocheting around. There is no way that he can just walk to the console.
Yeah.
Who puts their backup unit here?
I don't
Someone
know.
who really doesn't want you to get to it.
I guess so.
Aren't you
Is this
glad
where Mr.
you did?
Universe keeps all of his porn, which is
Yes.
all of the porn?
What you didn't see was the Lovebot's last words were, erase my browsing history now. Erase my browsing history.
Mal, this is really important.
I believe in
Get
freedom
the backup
of-
unit and delete the browsing history.
That information should not be free.
Most of this planet is hard drives containing every porn. I need you to help a brother
It's
out.
Planet Rule 34.
Ew.
But there are chains and metal bars between him and the console running across the ceiling. Back to the crew, they continue to shoot at Reavers as they come into the bottlenecked area. Zoe walks right up in front and starts attacking hand
Zoe.
combat here with the Reavers, and eventually falls and gets sliced up the back.
Which is graphic.
Gross.
And awful
Yeah,
and
it's
terrible.
bad.
Yes, yeah.
And then we cut back to Mal,
I mean, they did a good job. It's just, it's hard to see.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to
Sure.
watch.
which I think is the reason I'm doing this separately is I think the way they do the cuts is really nice here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get just a bit of information, then you get worried about the crew, and then they cut
Right.
back to Mal, and
Right.
you get worried about Mal, and then they cut back to the crew.
Yeah. Gosh, no rest for the worried.
That's right. Mal starts to try to climb up the railing to reach the bars to climb across, but the operative shows up and shoots him in the back. And he says, "You shot me in the back. I haven't made you angry, have I?" The operative says there are a lot of innocent people in the air being killed right now. And Mal says, "You have no idea how true that is." Speaking of the Reavers, like those were innocent people. Mal tells the operative that he knows the secret and that he will show the world because they need to know it. And the operative asks Mal if he really believes that and asks if he's willing to die for that belief. Mal, finally having found something to believe in fully, completely resolved, says, "I am."
Yeah.
And I like that we get that beat there. He thinks about it. And
Yeah.
he goes, "Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe in this."
Yes.
Yeah. He
I like
realizes
that
it
theme.
himself even. He gets a few shots off at the operative and leaps to the metal bars to make his way to the console. The operative quickly follows him, attacking him. In the Reaver fight, Jane pulls Zoe back and Simon bandages her back wound. Mal and the operative fight as they make their way to the console. Finally arriving, they continue the struggle. Jane takes a shot in the shoulder. River still struggles against all the psychic thoughts, and Kaylee takes 3 poisonous darts. The crew is forced to fall
In the
back.
neck!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dart in your neck!
Interested in the neck. The crew is forced to fall back through the blast doors, but the doors don't close all the way.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. That sucked.
Yeah, they get
yeah.
stuck.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
that
That's
got me-
bad.
Yeah,
that's
that
bad.
was really
That's bad
Yeah.
juju.
Kaylee
Suspense
says
went
that
up.
she could close them, but she has to do it from the other side. And Zoe says no one's
Yeah.
coming back from that.
Yes.
Simon forgot his medical bag on the other side as well.
Come on,
which
Simon.
He needs
One
to
job.
keep Kaylee from dying from this poison. Anara says that the lift, the only way out, isn't responding.
Mm-hmm.
Simon stands, realizing this, and takes a shot realizing that he needs his bag and takes a shot to the gut.
Oh
Lenore
my
puts
gosh,
pressure
I
on
got
the wound.
so scared at this point because I forgot that
Me
this
too.
happened.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I was
do we
like,
lose Simon
wait,
too?
does
And I
Simon
just
also
forgot?
die?
Me too.
Yeah. I was like, why are we killing everyone? Jocelyn was just like, screw this show. I never want to bring it back.
That's right. You canceled my show. I'll show you.
I'll show you. I'll cancel your
life.
Joss Whedon said this was the hardest scene to shoot because
They're in like a super
I was
narrow
gonna say,
hallway.
no,
Tiny
because
little
Sean
room.
Mayer and Summer Glau had developed such a strong relationship that in this emotional moment, in the acting, Sean was acting so good in this that Summer kept breaking down in tears trying to read her lines and like do her parts.
Oh.
She just kept collapsing in like emotional distraught.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's how you know you're acting super good.
Yeah.
Is when the other people forget that you're acting.
Yeah, and you've just developed this relationship with this person. You're having to watch them like dying.
Ugh.
Moving back into the scene, though, Simon apologizes to River. River says, "You take care of me, Simon. You've always taken care of me.
Yeah.
My turn," and dives through the opening doors.
I love this. Excellent River
Fighting the
moment.
Reavers, yeah.
So beautiful. Yep.
Bag just comes flying back in, door slams
Yep,
shut.
she
And
closes
you're
the
just
door,
like,
and
well,
then-
we're killing River then.
Yeah,
okay.
there's a shot there
See,
where
I
she's
never
off
thought
the
that,
side of the
though.
street. She's pulled off with her hands.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen zombie movies
Yeah.
before.
And
I
that's
know what happens
River
here.
does have a zombie
Yeah.
movie, yeah.
I love this integration though between River as the sister and River as the child and River as the warrior. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mal continues to fight with the Operative, not faring well, and comically pulling a screwdriver from a nearby toolbox as the Operative pulls his sword. Almost representative of the whole show to me. I really like this idea of thinking of
Oh, no, it
Mal's
absolutely
battle against the Alliance has always been like a fight between a screwdriver and a sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like that.
yeah. Very good.
The Operative runs Mal through with the sword, but apparently misses any vital
Like
organs.
straight through, right?
Perhaps
Like,
on
just, I
purpose.
mean, misses everything. Like,
Yeah.
misses his spine, misses his guts, misses. I mean, just.
Well, he had some things moved, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
that
Well,
was
I
a
think
weird
maybe he was
explanation,
on
but
purpose.
okay.
He was wanting to kind of continue the fight, but slow Mal down, talk to him a little bit, and kind of end this, thinking that would be his,
man,
like,
you got to
trump
be
card.
some kind of guy to be able to like stab a guy through and miss all his major organs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
If anyone could do it, the Operative.
The operative, because he's
The
the
operative
best.
colon some kind of guy.
Some kind of guy.
And
The
On his
operative
business card.
can.
I don't like it. He says, "You know what your sin is, Mal?" And Mal says, "Oh, hell. I'm a fan of all 7. He headbutts the Operative and stabs him in the leg with a screwdriver as the Operative tries to land a kick. And he says, "But right now, I'm going to have to go with Wrath."
It's so good. It's really
Good
good.
line.
It's very
Real good.
visceral. It's really hard to watch.
Yeah. I missed the screwdriver in the leg the first time I watched this.
Yeah.
Watching it again, I was like, "Oh God, he just stabbed him with a screwdriver."
How weird is that?
He attempts to drive the sword into the Operative on the ground, but the Operative rolls out of the way and knocks Mal down. Back to the crew. They're waiting, stuck in the corridor. Jane asks Zoe if she thinks that Mal got through and got the word out. Zoe says, "I know he did." And we cut back to Mal falling bloodily on the ground.
Right. Oh.
He pulls himself up, and the Operative does his paralyzing trick, his signature here, hitting Mal in the right nerves just like he did the Doctor at the beginning. But Mal notices he can still wiggle his fingers. The Operative says, "You should know there's no shame in this. You've done remarkable things, but you're fighting a war you've already lost." He lunges at Mal, and at the last second, Mal grabs the sword and elbows him hard in the throat and says, "Yeah, well, I'm known for that."
Yep.
Good line. I love me some Malcolm
so
Reynolds, you guys.
good.
Yep.
It's so good.
Mal grapples the Operative, and both of the Operative's arms crack. I'm assuming he just dislocated his arms here.
Right? That was
Jeez.
Something unpleasant.
Because
something
the
unpleasant. I thought it was a
Crunchy.
It's not
spinal
broken.
thing. Crunchy. Something
Yeah,
crunchy.
it's-
Something crunchy.
We learn
gross.
later that it's not broken because the Operative's fine not that long after.
Right, right.
But he can't move his arms in the moment, so I'm assuming he
How does he
dislocated
get his
both of arms.
freaking like communicator to anyway?
Mal explains that the nerve cluster that he was trying to hit was tore up in the war and had to be moved. He apologizes for the Operative's throat, saying that he probably wants to say some last words, but says the problem with that is he's not going to kill him. Mal uses his sword to lock him into the railing and says, "I'm going to grant you your greatest wish." He starts uploading the message with a convenient giant send all option on the screen. He says, "I'm going to show you a world without sin." The message plays over numerous screens. The Operative watches A walkway forms and Mal walks off. Apparently,
Why doesn't that form when you first walk into this room?
That would be too easy.
I guess so.
Then the Alliance would have walked to it and destroyed it. But they saw it from far away.
Mr.
And said, no one's gonna be able
Universe
to get
is
to
like
that.
really weird about his porn.
You played enough Zelda games. You know how it works.
That's
you have
fair.
to fight through the
true.
dungeon.
You
and
make
when
the
you're done,
puzzle
you get the
first.
back door.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. I genuinely love the whole detail with Mal's nerve cluster. Like, as contrived as it is, the fact that it was torn up in the war, the fact that his experience with the Alliance has rendered him immune to the Operative is just so good.
Yeah.
I love it very much.
We cut back to River, who continues fighting Reavers. Apparently, she wasn't killed when she was dragged off.
Yay.
She's
Of course
dancing
not. She's the
violently through
Uber
the
weapon.
room gracefully as they all pour in.
Uber Weapon dancing violently through the room is my favorite ska band.
Here we go. The Operative stares at the message as it finishes. Mal returns to the crew in the corridor, telling them it's done. He looks to be on his last leg. He asks about River, and there's a moment of silence, and the blast doors open,
God, I love
showing
this.
that iconic image of River standing in a room full of dead Reavers holding a blade in
I
each
love this so
hand.
much.
Yes.
It's
A
pretty damn
bloody,
cool.
soaking blade
Yes.
surrounded by bodies.
Nothing is
amazing.
more epic than this sight, but I always have this thought of, did she push the button to open the door and then step back and pose?
She absolutely
No,
did.
she pushed it with her mind.
Oh, there you go.
That's not how...
Or she like kicked something on the ground that hit the button and then
Right. No, she kicked a Reaver and he slammed into the
There you go,
button
there
and
you
then
go.
died. And then she was like, oh, I gotta look cool.
Which was weird because it was a combination lock. She had to kick him really carefully.
Yes,
So
yes.
that each finger hit the correct button and he just opened the
I
door.
choose to
I don't
believe
even
she was
care
just a
'cause it's
swirling
so
mess on the
freaking
blades.
cool. Yeah,
And
no,
the last
it's
moment, the last river
amazing.
she hit just fell into the button and she just stopped that swing right there.
Yes, no, it is brilliant and perfect
Yes,
and
it's so
all that is
perfect.
good in the world.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
And it makes a good desktop wallpaper too.
It sure
Oh,
does.
Wow. Yeah. It'll help you start your morning.
Oh, God. All right, I'm ready.
And if you notice during the fight, something had shot through the wall and grabbed the wall as she was fighting. And you might not have paid too much attention to it, but now there's 4 or 5 of those behind her as she's standing there and the wall
I
gets
did
pulled
not
down.
get any of that.
Yeah.
I just thought, wow, that's weird that wall exploded, like, just right
No,
then.
they had shot things into it that grabbed the wall
Okay.
and pulled it down.
That makes way more sense.
The wall collapses and Alliance soldiers pour in, guns aimed at River, telling her to drop her weapons and asking the Operative if they have a kill order. A moment passes. River grips her weapons, ready to fight the soldiers. I love that. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
She'll take them all out with an
Yeah.
axe.
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
And the soldiers ready their guns, fingers on the trigger. But the Operative says, stand down. It's finished. I love that Mal looks so beat up here. The blood in his eye and everything.
Oh, it's
It's
so
blood
gross.
in
his eye
Yeah,
is
I hate
awful.
it.
I don't know if I've
I
ever
think it's
watched a
cool.
movie where the hero took so much damage and looked like they were really in a rough fight so much and on their last leg at the end. The bloody pulp of everything is just such a good
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah.
It's so good. In the commentary, Joss Whedon points out that when all the soldiers dropped their guns, that wasn't actually supposed to be filmed. They actually cut, and that was them saying cut, and everyone dropped their guns while filming, and they just left that in because it fit better. Because originally they asked if they had a kill order, and then it just ended and cut to the next scene, and you were supposed to wonder kind of what happened and how it played out. But they went back in and kind of added some more to that, and added him saying, it's over.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
shoot. And then they let that. And if you can notice on the left when they're dropping their guns, there's actually a camera that drops, but you think it's a gun in your head because you're not thinking about
Oh,
it.
that's so funny.
Because someone's lowering a camera because they're done shooting.
Right.
We now fade to the outside where we have a holographic gravestones here for Book, Wash, and Mr. Universe with his love bot and the hologram.
Yep. That's a band name too. Love Bot and the Holograms.
Love on the holograms? Yeah.
On another stone, River finishes a homemade looking rocket. Zoe dressed in a gorgeous dress, as we mentioned.
Unnecessarily
Gorgeous.
beautiful dress.
So, unnecessarily beautiful woman, I would say.
Unnecessarily beautiful woman.
She's holding a flame for the rocket as she approaches.
Yeah.
Has a moment looking at Wash's hologram. All of our hearts break.
Of course.
The crew
He's
mourns
all smiley and
silently.
winky.
Jane chews on a giant cigar. Beautiful wide shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was supposed to have a whole scene here where they waited for a moment. They shut off the rocket. There was fireworks, but they cut it for time, I guess. It's kind of sad because now there's just a rocket there that never gets lit, and they don't really explain what's happening.
Yeah.
I got confused because it's on the same stone as the other memorial things. But
It's
then I
like,
was
whose grave
whose
is
grave
that? That's the Reaver grave?
One for all mankind. I don't know. Everyone we lost. Maybe all the people that I don't know. Yeah.
That was always my reading, was that it represented everyone who had died, because it almost feels as though it's covered in dog tags. It's got like
they have like little notes or something. Like they
Yeah.
definitely River definitely walks up and like puts something on that rocket, and there's all these little shiny notes. And I thought that they were like
Maybe it
prayers
is.
or
Yeah.
things like that you put on
and,
there.
bottle rocket exploding could represent like each person has a star, a spark
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
sky, which represents
Sure.
the multitude that fell. I don't know if it means anything, but Kaylee wears a medallion in this scene that is the Chinese character for joy, happiness, or cheer. That's often worn at weddings, but it's the only time we see her wearing it is here during the funeral. So
Well, canonically, Zoe is pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in the
Yeah.
comics, she
Yeah, I forgot
definitely
about that.
has their
Yeah.
daughter, whose
Yeah.
name is Emma, I think, or Emily, something like that.
And it strikes me that the dress was reminiscent of a wedding dress, I thought, more
Yeah.
than funereal.
So maybe
Wow.
they just found out that Zoe is pregnant, and so it's like
and
the
it's like
celebration
this life
of
and death
life.
cycle.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Headcanon
Yeah.
accepted.
And we get this fade out to them working on Serenity, which would have been, I think this is why they should have kept this near, because the bottle rocket exploding was supposed to fade into the sparks of them working on the ship.
Oh,
And it
why
would have
did
been
they
such a
keep
good
that?
cut. It would have been an amazing cut.
Yeah.
Weird.
But they didn't do it. So
Okay.
we fade into the crew
They
fixing
didn't
Serenity.
ask us, I guess.
Yes.
Next time, give me a call, Whedon. I'll fix your movie.
Listen, I have a lot to say to you about Wanda Maximoff.
Yes, I was going to say, this is how we get to Avengers 3. It's Wanda's story, exclamation point.
It's Wanda's all the way down. We bring back Pietro and also Wash.
Also, I love you, Whedon. If you're listening, come talk to us.
Yes.
We really like your show.
So we fade to the crew fixing up Serenity, each of them working away, even River working on the ship. Anara paints the logo back on. Simon and Kaylee get heated in the engine room while working and go to the ground off camera. River pokes her head in from a vent, still on the still camera from above, looking down for a moment. I love the way that's framed, that the camera just sits there. They fall to the bottom of the scene, and she comes in from the top looking down.
Man, I hope she leaves soon.
Yeah.
They're banging.
We cut to see Mal walking out of the ship. It's now raining outside to show that time has elapsed as they have fixed up their ship.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mal walks out and meets with the Operative. The Operative says it's not over. He can't guarantee that the Alliance won't continue to pursue Mal and his crew. Parliament's regime was weakened by the message being broadcast, but he says that they're not gone and they're not forgiving. We learn that he helped the Serenity get repaired. The Operative told them that the Parliament that the Tams were no longer a threat, but he thinks they might not mean much to them because he knows that they're not his man anymore. He's not on their side anymore.
Right.
And Mal says, they take you down, and I don't expect to grieve much. Like to kill you myself if I ever see you again. And the Operative says, you won't. There's nothing left to see, and fades off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the original script, there is another moment here where Mal looks at him a moment, then picks up his gear to head inside. The Operative starts away, but then stops and looks up at the nose of the ship. The newly painted Serenity, they're standing at him, and he says, Serenity, you lost everything in battle. Everything you had, everything you were. How do you go on? Mal hits the button to close the inner door, steps inside as they slide together, glances at the Operative unimpressed, and says, you still standing there? When the engine starts, you'll never figure it out. And the Operative watches the door shut a moment, and then he goes.
I like the
Interesting.
first half of that a lot. I didn't like Mal replying to him. I wish he had if he had just said it to the ship
Yeah.
as the ship took off, I would have loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having
I think that
Mal
would've been
respond
good.
is weird.
Yeah, I agree.
But I like that better because for me, that little ending bit with the Operative falls flat. I don't understand why it's there. I would have been happy to just leave him strapped up to wherever he was. I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure. Is he supposed to be?
Well, what Whedon says in the commentary for this
or
is
just-
that he thinks that a hero convincing the bad guy that they were wrong is better than just killing them. And he wanted to show that this guy has turned. He's seen the message and he's changed his belief.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the Operative survive this, and I'm happy for him to be changed by the experience. I think the commitment to having him simply fade
Right, was
to
weird.
speak to that absence of personhood isn't
But then at
really
this point,
resonant. Yeah, exactly.
No, because if your mind is changed, then he needs
Yes.
to join the independents. He
Having
needs to be
him
fighting.
question,
Well, and that's what I thought when you
what
were...
do you fight for?
Yeah,
Yes,
when you were
that's-
just now reading what was happening in the original script, I thought that you were going to say that then the Operative stepped onto Serenity.
Right, there you
Yeah,
go.
like, which,
Oh,
of course, would not happen.
yeah,
He
but
killed
no. I was like,
way
nope.
too
No,
many of
not
Mal's
gonna happen.
friends.
I'll
However,
shoot you
start
in
your own
stupid
ship.
face.
But yeah,
Operative
but
gets
then
his own ship and calls it the Tranquility.
He goes and gets Jubal Early's ship, which is still floating in space someplace.
Right. And then he picks up Jubal Early? That guy's dead now, right?
No, he survives. He comes back in one of the comics. I think.
Nerds! I'd much rather have the Operative.
The Operative is totally cool. Yeah.
Who also
I
can
would watch
come
this
back
film.
now and do all sorts of stuff. Inside Serenity, Mal meets with Zoe and asks, think she'll hold together? And Zoe says, ships tore up plenty, but she'll fly true.
They're not talking about the
beautiful-
ship,
Oh, no,
right?
they're totally talking about Zoe there. He's asking if
Yes,
Zoe's
of course.
okay.
Yeah. And it's
But
beautiful.
maybe they're talking about the whole crew. The family is tore up plenty, but she'll fly
sure.
true. They're going to
Yeah.
unite again in this.
It's a
But
big conversation. Yeah.
Look ahead at what Mal says to River right at the end. That love is what keeps her in the air.
yeah.
Oh,
And
that's right.
It's
Yes.
so beautifully constructed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And Zoe says, could be, or no, Mal says, could be bumpy. And Zoe says, always is.
Always is.
As is life.
I love Zoe.
Mal asks Lenore if she's ready to go back to civilized life. And Lenore says, I don't know. And Mal says, good answer. And they share a smile. Mal sits in Wash's seat, ready to pilot the ship, and speaks to River, who is
All
in
the
other
dinosaurs
seat.
are still
and
there.
all the dinosaurs are still there, and it hurts me.
Yep.
But I
course
love
they
it.
are.
And I just know that they're always going to be there. Of
course
they
Mal
are.
will never allow
Yes.
anyone, even if he gets another pilot, to move those. You do not touch those dinosaurs.
No,
You do
those
not
are
look at
those
those
are a
dinosaurs.
very functional
Right.
part of the ship. Those keep her in the air.
Oh.
Those dinosaurs are love.
And then we get an amazing dialogue between Mal and River.
Yes.
Noticing that River is sitting in the shotgun seat there. Mal says, you going to ride shotgun, help me fly? And River says, that's the plan. Mal says, think you can work out? And then she flips switches and the ship takes off. And he says, well, it ain't all about buttons, little albatross. Calling back the poem.
Little albatross.
He says, you know what the first rule of flying is? Well, I suppose you do, since you already know what I'm about to say. And she says, I do, but I like to hear you say it.
It's so sweet. This is a lovely little sequence.
Then says the line that you were just bringing up. Love. You can learn all the math in the verse. But you take a boat in the air and you don't have love, she'll shake you off just as sure as the turning of worlds. Love keeps her in the air when she ought to fall down. Tells you she's hurting for she keens. Makes her a home. And River also looks out in the sky and says, storm's getting worse. And he says, we'll pass through soon enough.
This is a beautiful denouement.
Yep.
It's
And,
gorgeous.
it's,
really
and they're
great.
obviously
Yeah.
talking about
Excellent.
more than just the storm there because
Yeah.
they're about to
Yeah.
come out of the storm in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, for real.
But they're
Yeah, it
talking
takes
about
like
this is
zero
another
time.
adventure.
Yeah.
They're now starting another adventure. Serenity shoots through the storm into orbit, and a piece of metal falls off toward the camera, blocking out the frame. Mal says, "What was that?" Mirroring the beginning of the film.
Right.
Maybe noting again that they're starting their new adventure.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
the beginning of the next
sure.
movie, the beginning of the next adventure.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like that.
I completely understand why that last beat is there. I kind of don't want it. I kind of love
Just
the
'cause it's
scene
so
between
lovely.
Mal and River so
Yeah.
much that I want to just sit with that a moment longer.
Yeah.
But I can see
that.
why it's there as punctuation, and then we move into the.
Sure.
And if you were patient enough to sit through some of the credits, you'll be treated at the very end with an acoustic solitary guitar theme version of the original TV theme,
Which is
of Firefly.
Nice.
Awesome. It's so
It's
good.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Wow.
I love my captain.
What was your favorite part of this movie?
I loved all of the Haven stuff. I loved everything with Book. And those were the moments to me that were most resonant of that found family theme that has meant so much for me throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that resonate the most after the show's over.
That makes perfect sense.
Everything for me is about when the family reunites. So when Jane is checking on people,
Yeah.
when they're coming together at the very end, and then finally it all culminates in River, who they distrusted, who they're not sure if they can even have the ship. She's dangerous. She's now flying the ship with Mal, and Mal is talking to her about love and what holds together a family, what makes a ship a home.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. That's all of it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite moment is that last scene. But what I love most about this film is the way that everything has at least two functions. We're talking all the way through about these two beats, about these callbacks.
Sure, yeah.
Everything that's introduced in the first 20 minutes of this movie pays off at the end. And you anticipate none of it because it all works in the moment. The operative killing the doctor with the nerve punch and the sliding onto the sword.
Yeah.
That works in the moment so beautifully and yet also sets up our climax. There are so many examples of that. This is a reminder that Whedon at the top of his game is not just a great writer of dialogue, but a fantastic, unparalleled teller of stories.
Yes, absolutely. My favorite part is when River kicks ass.
Which is, I was going to
good.
say,
Yeah.
I was really actually kind
Pretty
of
good.
torn. But,
Yeah,
and
no.
again, the choreography.
Like
of those things
she's
are
super cool against the Reavers,
beautiful.
but whenever they're in that bar
Yes.
in Fancy and Mingo's place or whatever, and
Yeah.
she is,
I love that she does it all in a dress.
Deadly Grace, like
Yes.
just
Deadly Grace.
incredible, insane, ridiculous, absolute favorite part. Who gave the best performance in this film?
Ooh.
The Operative, right?
The
He
Operative
does
is
a
really,
great
really
job.
good.
I also really love River. Again, even with the way she moves her feet, Joss Whedon will say that her feet are the 11th character of the show.
yeah.
And I agree. Yeah, they do some great work with that. And her movements just so graceful, and her fashion.
Wow,
and
is
just-
very good.
when you're trying to be someone who has all this stuff in your head, that's a hard
Right.
thing to act, and I think she does it really
Yeah.
well.
Sure.
I know it's the obvious one to go for, but it's Nathan Fillion. for
Oh,
me.
yeah. No,
I
he's
think he manages
stunning.
to bring such depth and manages to bring together. I think it's interesting that Inara has that line about "I've known so many versions of
Yes.
you," because he manages to bring together and synthesize all the versions of Mal that we've seen through the show,
Yeah.
and unify them. He is one character. He doesn't swing wildly through the arc of this movie, but I think the performance is so subtle, so complex, so layered, so somber in parts, and yet he still manages to have the great one-liners. He still manages
Right.
to be Mal Reynolds.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion for me.
Wow. I'm having trouble with this one, you all. There are so many excellent choices. I really liked Ron Glass, and I really actually liked Zoe, whose name is escaping
Gina
me.
Torres.
Gina Torres,
Gina
yeah.
Torres in this one, too. This is the best Zoe that I've seen. But I think I do have to go with Summer Glau. She was just magnificent. She was so compelling. And God Make Me a Stone was just so
It's very,
heartbreaking.
very good. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she was lovely.
Well, excellent. I think that is going to do it for us. You guys, we have a very special treat for you. This episode is dropping on the 21st of February. Next week, on the 28th, we're going to do a live episode on YouTube with
We're gonna try. We're
cameras
gonna do our best.
and videos.
Yeah.
And we're going to do basically a wrap-up episode where we're going to talk about the series as a whole, the movie as a whole. We're going to answer any questions that you guys have. So we will have probably a Patreon-only link for people to be able to join the YouTube chat.
Yes, I think so for the live. Doesn't that sound good for the live?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
and then we'll drop it in the feed for everybody.
Yeah,
else
and we'll
later.
drop audio for everybody else after that. So we're gonna do that at the same time that we would normally do a live tweet. So that live video, live cast will
Right?
be.
I don't know. I've never done this before.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. It's gonna be great.
Experience slight turbulence and then explode.
And then explode.
It'll be interesting.
that might actually
That
be
could
what happens.
conceivably happen.
Yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
God, we're all going to die?
Yes. So 8 p.m. Central.
Yes.
Tuesday, February 28th. That is
Right.
next week.
Yeah. Send us questions with the hashtag MF Shindig or through
Email
Yes.
at podcast@commonroomradio.com. You can also visit our website, thecommonroomradio.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/commonroomcast. You can follow us on Twitter at commonroomcast. You can follow me personally at Elsa Grab the Salt.
I'm Lizbeth Ray 555.
I'm at Fleshy there, and you can hear more from me at the Graphomania Podcast Network at graphocast.com, GRAPHOCST.com.
I'm amazed by Vinton, mostly.
Right?
And
Gotta
on
do that
Twitter.
for Storywonk. Spell
at
it out. Do the
Paper
whole thing.
Bullets. You can find more from me at storywonk.com.
Exactly.
You did it.
I know he's amazing. High five. Yep.
That's staying in the show. That's it.
Thank you guys so much. This has been a blast. I'm going to go home and sleep forever now. I'm so tired.
It's been a ton of fun, guys. Thank you so much for having me on throughout the run of MFS.
Absolutely.
It has been a complete pleasure. I can't wait to talk about more shows with you.
Yes, it's going to be good.
Let's
It's
do
going to
it.
be good
Best and
things.
my favorites.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much. I'm Sarah K. Bazant.
I'm Liz Stevens.
I'm Vinton Bain,
And I'm Alistair Stevens.
and it's okay. I'm a leaf on the wind.
What does that mean?
According to Joss Whedon, there were 20 separate takes of this scene of Simon and Kaylee's final makeout.
Tough
and
day
it was
at
number
work,
20
guys.
that was used.
Oh, no.
Also, can we talk about
beans.
Sean Mayer's muscles? Like, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Looking good.
Whoa. Washboard
good,
abs.
Sean.
My
Looking
goodness.
good,
Those
Sean.
pecs are like the size of a baby's head.
Weird comparison. Okay, yeah.
What is it? Like bread box? Smaller than a bread box.
Larger than a baby's head.
Larger than a baby's head.
Texas toast, right?
Texas toast. And Hawaiian rolls just down there.
end of a long recording session. I think we're all getting a little hungry here.
Okay, a little something.
Woo! Bread makes her hot.
Bread makes you hot.
I can't do the podcast anymore.
Everyone's broken. Dear God. This is how it ended. This is my holographic message talking about how the podcast ended. The Pox had the opposite result on us.